What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto had to seal a demon by spending the night with her? If you enjoy this video then please like, share and do comment. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. So let us start the story.
It was just another normal day for Naruto. He was currently sitting on the swing outside the academy looking at all the parents coming to pick up their children. He was dressed in a black t-shirt with the Uzumaki swirl on the shoulders and black cargo pants. Over that he wore a black leather hooded coat. Every time he would see a child greet their parent with a smile on their face, he couldn't help but feel a slight pang of jealousy deep within him. He never knew what happened to his parents and the Hokage wouldn't tell him. He knew the man knew, even if he insisted that he didn't. You don't live as long as him, as the most hated person in Konoha, without learning how to read people. It's an essential skill when living on the streets, and one you pick up very quickly when the majority of the people in Konoha want you dead. The blonde remembers that even before he had refined this skill he still had a sixth sense for trouble. Before he was caught by the populace the first few times he had this feeling in the back of his head, he just didn't know what it was. But he soon learned it was some kind of danger sense, because every time he would feel it within a few minutes an irate mob of civilians would be after him. He slowly learned how to read people as the years went by. While at first he couldn't read more than the simplest expressions of pure anger, over time he learned how to read people by the simplest facial twitches. Looking back, it probably saved his life over a dozen times. Outside of knowing how to read people, he was quite the wizard with seals. After he found a discarded introduction to Fuinjutsu book in the dumpster one night he was totally engrossed. The possibilities that seals contain is limitless, basically only confined by the user's imagination. Outside of the simple storage seals, Fuinjutsu could be used for heating, cooling, silencing, bombs, and in extreme cases teleportation. When he had read through the introductory book he started breaking into the residences of shinobi who were out on missions to try and swipe any Fuinjutsu books they may have sitting around. The clans always had a couple good books on the subject. Living on the streets forced him to resort to thievery. A lot of the food he ate was stolen from merchants that refused to sell to him. With this practice in thievery, he naturally got good with his stealth. Eventually he was stealthy enough that he could pull pranks without being caught by the patrols and he could shake the Anbu guards, for what good they did, that were always following him. "Hey Naruto." A voice sounded behind him. Naruto resisted the urge to jump when he heard the voice and quickly berated himself for not noticing someone sneak up on him. Naruto turned around to see his silver-haired sensei, Mizuki, looking down at him. Mizuki was an average-height chunin that wore a bandana-style Hite-8. He wore the standard chunin flag jacket and wore a long-sleeve blue turtleneck shirt underneath. He had blue Anbu pants and blue sandals. All in all, he looked like a generic ninja of Konoha. "Oh, hi Mizuki-sensei, what are you doing?" Naruto asked, though he had an inkling about what he may want. He had seen the way Mizuki would look at him, even if he tried to hide it, and the fact that he was overly nice today set off alarm bells in his head. "Well, I just wanted to let you know that I feel that Iruka was being too harsh on you and I wanted to give you a second chance at graduating." Mizuki answered nonchalantly. "What, another test?" Naruto asked, deciding he would hear him out. Not like hearing him out would do any harm. "Well, I believe you're an exceptional ninja, however, the test was just not in your favor. Not all ninja can create bunshin, nor do all ninja need them. However, back to the test, all you have to do is take a scroll that I will have planted in the Hokage Tower and then learn one of the jutsus in the scroll. Then I will give you your Hite-8 and grant you genin status." Mizuki grinned. What does he want the scroll for? Bah, no big deal. I'll just play dumb and blame him. Naruto thought, that's all? Should be easy enough. What does this scroll look like? It's about half your size and bordered in green. I'll put it behind a locked door and have some shinobi guarding the door. Don't hold back or you won't graduate. When you are done meet me in this clearing. Points to a map he took out at 2000 tonight and I will evaluate your progress. Mizuki said before he took off. So I have about 5 hours to set up that area before he gets there. PSH, he makes this too easy. Time to set up a playground. Naruto thought before he took off to get to work. -5 hours later, Hokage office. All the prospective Junin senseis were in the office. Even Kakashi, who was chronically late, though he seemed to be glaring daggers at the Hokage over his book. Next to Kakashi, Kurenai was nervous. She just recently became a Junin and she was already called to possibly take a team. She didn't know if she had enough experience to actually lead a group of green genin. She herself was still a green Junin. However, Kurenai's friend, Anko, was jumping up and down on the balls of her feet in excitement. She had just recently been promoted from Tokubetsu Junin to full Junin last week and now she can get some brats to torture. Sure, having to do a bunch of low-ranked missions would be a bore, but come on. She gets to make the next generation of brats better, and she would make sure she did better than her sensei. Okay everyone, I have the list here for the graduates. If any of you want to request someone, feel free to speak now. The Hokage said as he laid the list down on his desk. I would like to take Uchiha Sasuke. Kakashi said, his head still seemingly buried in his book. I was planning on placing him on your team either way, Kakashi. You'll be invaluable in teaching him about the Sharingan when he manifests it. Do you have any other requests for your team? Hiruzen asked. No, Hokage-sama, that will be all. Kakashi replied. Okay, then I would like to put Haruno Sakura, and a new student by the name of Sai who has been apprenticed onto that team as well. The Hokage stated. Very well, Hokage-sama. Kakashi stated, still reading his porn. I would like Aburame Shino, Inazuka Kiba, and Hyuga Hinata. Anko piped up. A tracking team. Very well, Anko-san. The Hokage wrote down the team on a piece of paper. Go easy on Hinata, she doesn't have much self-confidence. Kurenai whispered to her friend. Don't worry so much, Nai-chan. When I am done with her, she'll be more than confident. Anko grinned back at her best friend. Asuma stepped forward. Whoa. I already put you down for the Ino Shika Cho group, Asuma. Hiruzen interrupted without looking up from the team assignment sheet. Oh, well, thanks. Asuma said as he stepped back into the crowd. No names get no names. Okay, if that will be. Just as the Hokage was about to dismiss the Junin, Kurenai looked relieved that she didn't get a team. A Chunin barged into the office panting and with a nasty bruise forming on his face. Hokage-sama, horrible news. Naruto has stolen the forbidden scroll of sealing. The Chunin exclaimed. When did this happen? Hiruzen roared as Ki leaped off his person. He glared at the Chunin responsible for guarding the most important scroll in all of Konoha, and apparently failed at his job. About 40 minutes ago, sir. The Chunin stuttered out. And you are just telling me now because? Hiruzen asked while slowly releasing more of his ki. I, did not, regain consciousness until now, sir. The Chunin said, shying away from the aged Hokage. What do you mean you didn't regain consciousness until now? How could you be bested by someone not even out of the academy? A Junin asked. He knocked me out with a club, sir. The Chunin replied loudly. How did he knock you out? He's an academy student. Another Junin yelled. He used a distraction to land the hit on me. The Chunin replied, feeling like all of Konoha was judging him for being bested by an academy student. And why were you distracted? Hiruzen asked as he slowly calmed down. The Chunin mumbled something incoherent to the group. What was that? The Junin asked. I said he used his Oiroke no Jutsu on me. The Chunin yelled. All the males in the room couldn't help but sympathize with the poor man. They had all seen that particular jutsu and could all agree that it could distract any straight man without fail. The women in the room, however, sans Anko, who just wanted to get a piece of that fine female ass, seemed to be more than a little angry at this news. Now everyone, let's all keep our heads on and see what is going on with our favorite blonde. Hiruzen said as he pulled out his trusty crystal ball. Designated clearing. Naruto felt a chill go up his spine. Shit, I think I may have made a mistake somewhere along the way with this plan. Naruto thought. He was exhausted, having spent a good half-hour learning the Kage Bunshin. When he first took the scroll, he was going to look for some sealing techniques since that was what he enjoys and excels at, but when he opened it up and saw the Kage Bunshin, he just knew he had to learn it, seeing as how he had failed the academy because of his lack of Bunshin technique. There you are, Naruto, I have been looking all over for you. Mizuki said as he climbed out of a bush. Really? You couldn't find this place? You're the one who designated this clearing. It should have been relatively easy for you to find. Naruto deadpanned. Don't get snippy with me, you little shit. Mizuki yelled. Whoa, mood swings. Are you PMing right now? Naruto asked. What did you say, you little shit? Actually, never mind. Give me the scroll or I'm going to pry it from your cold dead hands. Mizuki ground out as he looked at the blonde. Oh, well, before you take the scroll, may I ask what you intend on doing with it? Naruto asked as he stood up and put the scroll on his back. Mizuki paused after hearing that, noticing the lack of surprise in his tone. Did this little shit know that I was setting him up this entire time? He thought. Well, since you won't be leaving here, I guess it doesn't matter. Once I take that scroll, before or after killing you, I will be heading to Otogakure, where Orochimaru-sama will surely bless me for bringing him the forbidden scroll. Mizuki said. But, since I am feeling benevolent, I will let you in a little secret, the reason you are hated by the village. Oh, do tell. Naruto responded. Well, demon, 13 years ago when the Kyuubi attacked our village and the Yondaime saved us, it was written down in the books as him killing the demon. But that is not the truth. You see, you can't just kill something that powerful, so he had to seal it in something. That something just happened to be a baby born that very same day. He sealed the Kyuubi into you. You are the reincarnation of the Kyuubi. Mizuki yelled as he took a Fuma shuriken off of his back. You know, I feel like I should be shocked by this revelation, but it actually makes a lot of sense. Naruto said as he stood up. Die, demon. Mizuki yelled as he threw the shuriken. Naruto quickly dodged the shuriken before leaping into the forest. Come play in my forest of death, Mizuki, Naruto thought as he raced through the forest. Come back here, fucker. Mizuki yelled. Hokage's office. Hokage-sama, shouldn't we do something? Kurenai yelled as she made her way to the door. It's too late to do anything, Kurenai. We would not be able to reach him in time. Hiruzen said, sadly gazing into his orb. Those words stopped Kurenai. She had no idea where Naruto was. It would take much too long for her to reach him. Mizuki would have already killed him and escaped by the time she got there. She slowly turned back to the Hokage's desk and looked into the orb, joining the rest of the Junin in watching Naruto's fate. Forest. Come on, Mizuki, if you want to kill me you will have to do better than that. Naruto yelled as he ducked behind a tree while dodging some kunai thrown at him. Stand still, you piece of shit. Mizuki roared as he dashed through the underbrush. When he emerged on the other side, he saw Naruto looking at him with a small smirk on his face. Okay, I'll stand still. Naruto proclaimed as he stood there, smirk still in place. What are you smirking at, bitch? This chase ends now, Mizuki said as he took the other Fuma shuriken off his back. Good chase, Mizuki, but you lose. You fell right into my trap. And with that, Naruto pulled a string that he was holding. All of a sudden there was a wall of kunai coming at Mizuki. Mizuki quickly jumped up and landed on a tree branch where he tripped another wire, and a handful of shuriken came flying at him from above. He quickly rolled to the side in an attempt to avoid the shuriken, but some still got him in the leg. I'll get you for that, demon. Mizuki exclaimed as he stood back up. Too focused on Naruto, he didn't even notice the Fuma shuriken coming at him from behind. Before he even knew what happened, his head was removed from his body. Blood gushed out from his severed neck and his body fell from the tree limb he was on down to the ground, where it landed with a loud thud coupled with a few cracks. Thanks for playing. Though, I was expecting better from you. I had so many more traps for you. Naruto stared at the scene disinterested. Weird. They always said that your first kill would make you feel guilty or would make you start puking at the sight out of disgust and be mentally unstable for a while, and yet I don't feel a thing. Naruto mused. Nothing I won't lose sleep over. Time to return this scroll. Naruto then ran off to the Hokage tower to return the scroll. Before Naruto got very far, he ran into a very irate Iruka. Naruto, what the hell were you thinking? Stealing the forbidden scroll? Iruka yelled as he dropped from the tree canopy. How the hell did you find me? Naruto asked as he looked at his homeroom teacher. I went looking for you immediately after I learned you stole the scroll. I just happened to go the right way. Now, why did you steal the scroll? Iruka asked again as he stepped up in front of Naruto. Well, Mizuki said that it was needed for my makeup exam. Naruto answered as he stopped in front of the scarred Chunin. What makeup exam? There's no makeup exam. Where is Mizuki? Iruka asked, thoroughly confused with this chain of events. Why the hell would Mizuki make Naruto steal the forbidden scroll? Mizuki's body is right there. His head went flying elsewhere. Naruto said as he turned around and pointed towards the body of the deceased Mizuki. How did he die? Iruka exclaimed. He chased me through a booby-trapped forest. You know, you said that pranks were useless for a shinobi, And yet I'm pretty sure that half of those traps in there are exact copies of some of my pranks, just with kunai traps instead of paint traps. Naruto answered coolly. Iruka looked at the blonde in front of him, not sure whether he was being serious or not. Did you just admit you're the one that has been pranking Konoha? Iruka asked. The Konoha populace had been plagued by pranks for a few years now, but they were never able to catch the culprit. Now when did I say that? I just said that some of those traps are exact copies of my prank layouts. I've never actually used them on anyone, Naruto replied. Iruka just stared at Naruto, not believing him for a second. So, you killed Mizuki? Naruto nodded. Iruka then got in front of Naruto and kneeled down. Listen, if you have to talk about it, I am right here and all ears. Iruka spoke softly. Now what did Mizuki tell you to do for your makeup exam? He told me to learn a jutsu out of the scroll, Naruto said as he put his hands in a cross shape, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Smoke filled the area, and when it cleared there were 30 more Narutos looking at Iruka. All Iruka could do was gape at Naruto. He learned a B-rank ninjutsu in little over half an hour. Not only that, but he could make dozens of them and not be winded. Also, he had to have done this jutsu before when he was learning it, so that even further amazed him. Hey, sensei, why am I getting the memories of these clones? Naruto asked while scratching his chin. Huh? Oh, the Kage Bunshin gives memory feedback to the user. So anything they learn will be transferred to the original. They are great for infiltration and spying because of that feature. Iruka answered, resorting back to his lecture mode. Though for you, with your large chakra reserves, they might be able to be used on a larger scale in order for you to learn at a much faster pace than your peers. Well, ain't that useful? You wouldn't mind carrying this back to the Hokage Tower for me, would you? I want to go get some sleep. Naruto asked while pointing to the scroll. Sure, Naruto, but first I want you to have this. Iruka then started to undo his Hite 8. Mizuki said that if you learned a technique from the scroll you would become a genin, and I don't want your hopes to be crushed, so here. Iruka said while handing the Hite 8 to Naruto. Naruto just blinked as he received the Hite 8. He knew that he wouldn't have made genin from Mizuki's mission, but he was incredibly curious as to what the silver-haired ninja was up to, so he just went along with the plan. Thank you, sensei. I honestly didn't believe in this exam in the first place. I was just curious and bored. Sneaking into the Anbu headquarters gets boring after a while, Naruto said, though muttered the last part. Hokage office. Everyone just stared at the crystal ball in awe. This academy student had just set up a multi-layered trap and lured a chunin into it, where said chunin fell into each step of the trap. Not only that, but he learned a B-rank jutsu in no more than half an hour and was able to create dozens of Kage Bunshin without any problem. On top of that, he made it look like a stroll in the park. I like that Gaki, Anko exclaimed after she got out of her daze. And with that proclamation everyone else seemed to snap out of theirs as well. Well, it looks like we have one more genin that needs an instructor. Hiruzen said as he regained his composure. Who currently does not have a team? All the Junin moved to the side of the room, leaving Kurenai in the middle of the room. Hey, I guess that would be me, Hokage-sama. Kurenai said, feeling small with all the attention on her. Well, Kurenai, it looks like you will be getting young Naruto-kun as a student. Hiruzen said. Hokage-sama, with all due respect, I don't think that I should be his sensei. He is a chakra powerhouse more suited to ninjutsu and probably has no talent in genjutsu, while I am a genjutsu specialist. I am very limited in what I can teach him. Kurenai argued. This pairing was almost doomed to fail. Also, it would just be a two-man cell with just him and I. The only two-man cells have been apprenticeships. Well then I guess you can look at this as an apprenticeship. I expect much from your apprentice Kurenai, and maybe you will learn a few things from Naruto-kun as well. Hiruzen chuckled. Now the teams are final. Dismissed. Hi Hokage-sama, the Junin chorused before leaving the office. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto woke up immediately after he fell asleep, and in a sewer of all places. He pushed himself up to stand in the ankle-deep water and looks around. There were plenty of pipes around here. The sewer didn't remind him of any in Konoha after being down in the sewers multiple times. This was something else. Naruto turned around and saw something glowing red at the end of the sewer. Feeling the need to sat his curiosity, he started to head towards the light. As he approached, he started to feel the energy that was being given off by the light. It was malicious and vile, and yet, he almost felt comforted by the energy. as if he knew that this seemingly unending energy was there to help him. When he finally got to the room that housed the strange energy, he was met with a large cage held together by a piece of paper with the kanji for seal on it. It didn't take him long to figure out where he was, so he just waited for the big guy to make his entrance. "Hello there, Kit," a voice rumbled from behind the bars. "I see you have finally decided to grace me with your presence. Yay, I guess I should apologize for making you wait so long, though I just learned tonight that you were sealed inside of me. I probably should have been able to put the pieces together, but I wasn't really looking into it that much." Naruto answered. "Was that kid just respectful to me?" Kyuubi thought as he made his presence known to the young blonde. Behind the bars, two large red slitted eyes appeared. "Well, Kit, I guess I can forgive your incompetence this once," Kyuubi said. "That is quite kind of you, Kyuubi, though I do believe I should thank you." Naruto responded. "Yay, well, don't wait. What did you say?" Kyuubi asked. "I just feel that I should thank you for all the times you healed me, even if you weren't doing it consciously. There is no way a human can heal as fast as I do without the help of outside source. I can only seem to attribute that to you," Naruto explained. "This kid is different from the rest," Kyuubi thought. "Maybe he will be the one that he told us about." "Well, Kit, I guess you are welcome. But you had a faster than normal healing rate even before you factor being a Jinchuriki into the equation. I just make it even faster. Now back to the reason I dragged your ass here. I do not want a weak container. If you get your ass killed or beaten by some weak ninja, or kami forbid another Jinchuriki, I will never hear the end of it from my siblings. Furthermore, I'm going to help you become a true trickster and make you into a great illusionist, one that any kitsune would be envious of." Kyuubi spoke with certainty. Me? An illusionist? My chakra control is nowhere near precise enough to be able to use genjutsu against anyone above the academy. Wouldn't I be better as a ninjutsu user with my enormous chakra reserves? I mean, I would have to master every chakra control exercise there is and then create some to get my chakra control to the level needed for genjutsu," Naruto said, thoroughly confused with Kyuubi's ideas. "You're smart, kid, but you forgot one thing. Kitsunes are natural tricksters, and me, being the great and powerful being that I am the greatest of all kitsune, even if I am a chakra-constructed kitsune, and am therefore the greatest illusionist, which was passed down to you as my Jinchuriki. So no need to fret, genjutsu will come to you as naturally as fuinjutsu," Kyuubi explained. "Well, that solves that. I have always wanted to learn how to do genjutsu. It would really go well with the pranks I was planning on pulling on all those stores that don't let me shop there or charge me out the ass. Merchants probably have a damn Jinchuriki tax. It's fucking robbery." Naruto seethed at the treatment he received at the hands of the merchants, though at least now he knew why he was so hated. "Why don't you just shapeshift to get into the stores without them knowing?" Kyuubi deadpanned. "Shapeshift? Are you talking about henge? They have sensors in the stores to make sure shinobi aren't using chakra. Putting the cashier under a genjutsu to lower the price wouldn't be above many shinobi," Naruto asked. "Okay, kid, your henge isn't an actual henge by shinobi standards. Because of me, your henge is an actual shapeshift. It is tangible and won't be dispelled if someone attempts to touch you. In fact, they will actually feel what they are touching, and so will you. It also won't set off those sensors that you ninjas use because it doesn't use chakra to continue using the technique. It's a one-time chakra expenditure when you use it," Kyuubi explained. "Damn it, if only I had known about that earlier." Naruto sighed as he palmed his face. Though he couldn't really blame himself for not knowing about having a special henge, he literally just learned about it. "Calm down, kid, you didn't know, and quite frankly I can't really blame you. It's hard to notice that kind of stuff. Enough talk. You have spent too much time in here. Go get some rest. I will teach you during the week you have between now and your team assignments," Kyuubi said as he kicked Naruto out of his mindscape. Shit, should have asked him to change this damn sewer. Naruto woke up early in the morning to get ready for the training that Kyuubi had planned for him. He quickly went through his morning routine, which consisted of taking a short shower and brushing his teeth, getting dressed for the day, and a small breakfast of whole grain. He then left out the window and headed to his favorite training ground. Training Ground 44. Naruto was lazily jumping through trees when he finally made it to a clearing in the forest. This was a clearing that he had used many times before for his training. It had almost everything you would need to help you train, with a large open space, the lake off to the side with a waterfall falling into it from a cliff and the high trees. What the fuck? In the middle of the clearing was a jaguar. But not your average jaguar. This thing was at least 20 feet tall and had a tail half as long that was almost as thick as Naruto is wide. The jaguar was jet black and had glowing green slitted eyes that were looking straight at Naruto. Its canines were about a foot long and looked like they could chomp through even the strongest metal. Before Naruto could do anything, the jaguar lashed out with its tail and grabbed him. "I've been waiting for you, young one," the jaguar said as it brought Naruto before him. Naruto just stared into its eyes, knowing that he couldn't do anything to get away. He was held in front of the large feline for a few minutes before he started to get annoyed and his eyebrows started twitching. "I would appreciate it if you would do something. If you aren't going to kill me, you could at least set me down so I can begin training," Naruto said in a monotone voice, though a hint of annoyance could be heard. "Not afraid when you are caught in the clutches of the enemy and have no way out," the jaguar said. "I like you." The jaguar grinned, showing all its teeth. "Does that mean you will let me down?" Naruto asked. The jaguar chuckled before lowering Naruto to the ground and releasing him when he was on his feet. "Now the reason I was here waiting for you is because the Jaguar clan has been watching you over the last few years and seen the hardships that you have been through, and we are impressed with your willpower. Most people would have either committed suicide or would have gone insane by now," the jaguar praised. "Can't say that killing myself hasn't crossed my mind a few hundred times," Naruto mumbled. "Anyway, we have decided to let you sign our summoning contract for your perseverance. There will be no test with the boss summon since we figured your life was test enough." When the jaguar finished talking, a scroll poofed into his tail and he lowered it onto the ground in front of the blonde. "Just sign in blood and you are good to go." Naruto knelt down on the ground and took out a kunai and cut his forefinger. He then wrote his name in blood and stamped his fingerprints in the box below his name. After he did that, the jaguar rolled up the scroll and poofed it away. He then told Naruto the hand signs required for summoning before poofing back to the summon world. "Well, that was an interesting experience," Naruto deadpanned. "Okay, back to the original reason I was here. Kyuubi, can you hear me? Think what you want to say to me, kid, don't need you looking crazy." Kyuubi responded. "Right, so what are we going to do?" Naruto asked. "I am going to have you make about 100 cage bunshin to break into a few groups that will begin working on chakra control, genjutsu, and continue your fuinjutsu knowledge. Then you will summon one of those jaguars that you now have and see if they can teach you their clan's taijutsu style. Most summoning clans have a taijutsu style that go well with their clan." "Got it." Naruto quickly made 100 clones that split up to do their assigned tasks, 50 for chakra control seeing as his sucked horribly, then fuinjutsu and genjutsu each got 25. He was currently working on weight seals to help him with his training. "Kid, you will not be using weight seals on your body. You are too young for them. If you put them on, they will stunt your growth and you are already pretty damn short," Kyuubi said after hearing what Naruto was planning. "Then what am I supposed to use to increase my speed and strength? Calisthenics will only get me so far. Use resistance seals, they are the next level in training seals, so keep working on the weight seals and then when you finish with those, move on to resistance seals. Also, if you learn how to place seals on people using only your chakra to write the seal, then you could place a weight seal on someone that will make them 10 times heavier. Would make fighting them 10 times easier. Okay, I will split the fuinjutsu group up into those learning weight seals and practicing writing seals with only chakra then." And with a mental command, the fuinjutsu group split. 20 continued to work on the weight seal while the other 5 went to work on writing seals with only their chakra. After that was done, he bit his thumb and smeared the blood on his palm before going through the hand seals for summoning, slammed his hand on the ground. Kachiyose no jutsu. After the smoke cleared, another jet black jaguar was standing in front of him. This one, however, was only about 3 feet from foot to shoulder and had piercing orange eyes. "Hello Naruto-sama, what do you require?" the jaguar asked. "I don't like that sama suffix. Makes me feel old," Naruto thought. "Just Naruto is fine." Heiko," the jaguar answered. "Right, Heiko. I called you here because I was wondering if you could teach me the summoning clan's taijutsu style," Naruto stated. "Of course I can. However, we will also need to get you a pair of saber claws, a weapon that we have developed that work with our taijutsu style, though it is a strong style even without them. With the claws it adds more to it." Heiko answered before there was a puff of smoke in front of him. When the cloud dispersed, Naruto could see a much smaller jaguar standing in front of the larger jaguar. This jaguar was yellow with black spots and had yellow eyes. "What can I do for you, Heiko?" the young jaguar asked. "I need you to go get a pair of saber claws that will work for our summoner," Heiko said while pointing to Naruto with his tail. The small jaguar turned around and looked at Naruto for a second before bounding up to him. "Hello, my name is Renja," the jaguar exclaimed while looking up at Naruto. Naruto allowed a small smile to cross his face before he replied. "Hello Renja. My name is Uzumaki Naruto and I am your new summoner. Is there anything you need of me to get me some of those saber blades? I just need to measure your hands to make sure we get you some that fit you," Renja replied. With that said, Naruto held out his hands to the jaguar, who looked at them with a face of concentration. "Right, okay, I will be right back with some that'll fit." And with that, Renja poofed back to his realm. "We will just wait for him to arrive before we begin your training," Heiko said as he settled down in the clearing, tucking his front paws underneath him. About 3 minutes later, Renja returned with Naruto's saber claws. The saber claws had to be one of the most exotic weapons Naruto had ever seen. They were similar to a kunai or dagger, seeing as they had a blade that came to a point, but they were shaped differently. The blade was curved, looking like half a heart. Most of the blade was sharpened. The curved part had what looked like serrations cut into it, but Heiko explained to him that those were used mostly for catching a blade in. They were pretty ingenious if he were honest with himself. They added more lateral reach to his punches as well as cutting power. The only downside he saw was that he couldn't really stab with them, but they were built for slashing, so that was to be expected. "Alright, now that we have got you set up with your saber claws, let's get down to training," Heiko said. After he said that, he stood on his hind legs, coming up to about 5 feet 8. You hold the saber claws similar to how you would hold a reverse grip kunai, so that the blade is facing outwards and away from your body. That way, if someone dodges away from you, there is still the possibility of cutting them. Now let's get started with the katas. Our style is called Insho Takina Panzasutairu. It is an agility-based style. You strike quick and often and wear your opponent down. He then dropped into the stance and motioned for Naruto to do the same. He spread his legs to just past shoulder width apart and raised his left hand to just in front of his chest while his right hand was next to his stomach. Good, now let's continue. -5 hours later, Naruto can be found resting underneath one of the enormous trees found in the Forest of Death. He had just completed some of the most rigorous training that he has ever been through, and then he dispelled all his clones at once, causing him to pass out from memory overload. Now he is sorting out what he had learned during the training session. His genjutsu clones were able to learn a few genjutsus the Kyuubi taught them. He also explained to the clones how he is basically immune to all genjutsu except for very complicated high-level genjutsus, Sharingan genjutsus, and demonic genjutsu. He also explained how if he were caught in any of those, he would just need to call upon his chakra to act as a foreign chakra to dispel the genjutsu. So he was basically immune to genjutsu. His fuinjutsu clones were able to make a working weight seal but haven't been able to control the amount of weight yet. His other fuinjutsu clones were having trouble creating seals from their chakra. Kyuubi explained to them how the ultimate goal was for him to be able to just hit someone with an open palm and be able to place a seal on them that way in the half a second that his hand is connected to the other person. The problem with that is, at this point in time, he could hardly even make a mark, let alone tag a complicated seal on someone in half a second. His chakra control clones did incredibly well. They were able to get tree walking in the first 2 hours before they moved on to water walking, which is where they left off before they dispelled. His taijutsu work with Heiko was coming along great. Heiko told him that he is an extremely fast learner and that he is learning the taijutsu style faster than he expected him to. He was still choppy with some of his movements and didn't have the speed to execute some of the maneuvers, but that will come along in time, mostly after he has learned the resistance seal. Heiko had gone back to the summoning realm, stating that Naruto's taijutsu training was done for the day. Naruto just needed to rest his muscles and they would pick up again tomorrow. Seeing as he still had a good 4 hours before he needed to go back to his apartment for some sleep, he decided to see if he could learn any ninjutsu from the Kyuubi. "Hey Kyuubi, you think you could teach me some ninjutsu?" Naruto asked. "Sure kid, just give me a minute to check your chakra affinities." "How are you going to do that?" "I'm going to look at your chakra. I am an all-powerful being, seeing the affinities in someone's chakra is child's play. So Naruto sat there for a minute before he heard back from the Kyuubi. Okay, it seems that you have affinities to both wind and water. Pretty nice if you ask me. An extremely offensive affinity in wind and a balanced offensive and defensive affinity in water. You have a stronger affinity to wine, so you should probably work on mastering that one first. Kyuubi explained. Could you tell me how to master it? You are going to need to cut leaves in half using only your chakra. Make a lot of clones and then grab some leaves. Hold them in your palms and focus your chakra into them and then convert it into wind chakra, which you would probably envision it as something incredibly sharp. Right. And with that, Naruto created 200 clones who all went up to a tree and grabbed a leaf and started to try and cut it using their chakra. After the first hour with no progress, they started to realize that this was an incredibly difficult exercise, but Naruto was never one to give up when things got hard. If he had, he would not be alive. So with renewed determination, he went back to the leaf-cutting exercise with renewed vigor. A few hours later, Naruto was laying in the middle of the clearing, panting hard with a leaf that was torn halfway in his hands. He may not have gotten through the whole leaf, but he was making progress, and since Kyuubi told him that this was a Junin-level exercise, he thought he was doing pretty well. Too tired to go home, I'll just spend the night out here. Naruto thought before he crawled over to a large tree with equally large roots that he could use as shelter. As he lay under the roots looking up through the holes at the sky, he couldn't help but think how beautiful and peaceful the night sky is. Next morning, Naruto woke up and immediately looked around for any hostile civilians or ninja. He blinked when he realized he was in a forest and slowly began to remember the previous day. He crawled out from underneath the roots of the tree he was in and stretched out his limbs, feeling the satisfying pops of his joints. He felt more refreshed than he ever had before. He had to sleep outside some more if this is how he felt when he woke up. After that revelation, he quickly reviewed what he had learned yesterday during his training session. He was a natural when it came to Fuinjutsu, so it was no surprise to him when he had learned the weight seal in just under a day with the help of some cage bunshin. What was getting to him though was writing seals onto objects using his chakra. Right now he could successfully write a single kanji on an object, but it took a good 5 seconds for him to be able to write it, not that tap that Kyuubi told him he should learn to do. How was he supposed to write complicated seals in just half a second of contact with his chakra? It was an extremely difficult task, but he would get it done sooner or later. His genjutsu training was coming along perfectly. He wasn't as natural when it came to genjutsu, but he was still good with it, and he already was thinking of some things he could do with it. His taijutsu was coming along as well as it could. Having his growth stunted in the academy, he never really had a taijutsu style. The academy style was taught to him incorrectly, so he never bothered with it. Besides, it didn't really fit him, but now that he had his own style and someone who was willing to teach him, he was determined to master the style as quickly as possible. Wind manipulation was, putting it lightly, incredibly difficult. Even with a couple hundred clones working for about 4 hours, he was only able to get halfway through a leaf. This exercise was tough, but that also means that it would be very rewarding when he actually mastered it. Naruto looked around the clearing. He saw a boar off in the forest eating some kind of bush. His stomach responded with a growl, letting Naruto know that he didn't eat lunch or dinner last night and he would be damned if he missed breakfast. He quickly pulled out his saber claws and jumped in the trees above the boar, planning to drop down on it from above. When he got onto a branch above it, he leapt down on the unsuspecting animal. When he was about 2 feet from landing on the boar, he slashed at the boar's neck with his saber claws. They went right through the boar's spine and severed the head completely. Wow, didn't think they were that sharp. Naruto quickly wiped his saber claws off and stored them back inside his cloak. He would have to make storage seals for them later. He then grabbed the boar's legs and started dragging the large animal back into the clearing. When he got the boar to the center of the clearing, he went back out into the forest to get some wood to start a fire. He wasn't about to eat the thing raw, but before he left he made a shadow clone to skin and disembowel the boar. Naruto came back a few minutes later with an armful of firewood to an interesting sight. Surrounding the clone that he left with the boar was a circle of tigers, but they were not aggressive. Instead, they were all lying down like they were waiting for something. Naruto made his way over to his clone to see what was with the circle of predators. "Hey boss, sorry about the tigers, they came about a minute after you left and wanted some food. I promised them some if they didn't try anything. The clone said before poofing away. Well, I guess since I promised you some food you can have some. Let me just cut it up so everyone gets some. Naruto said as he looked at the tigers. They seemed to understand him and slowly rose to their feet before walking in front of him and making an orderly line. Naruto blinked owlishly before he shook his head and started to cut the boar into pieces. When he finished cutting the boar into pieces, he put all the pieces that he made for the tigers out in front of him. He was half expecting one of the tigers to just take all of the meat and leave nothing for the rest of them, but was again surprised when the first tiger in line took the first piece of meat closest to him before walking away to lay under a tree while he ate. This process was repeated until every tiger had a piece of meat. Naruto just shook his head before turning to the firewood he collected. He quickly set up the fire and got it started with some fire starters that he always kept with him. He took his piece of boar that he cut for himself and placed it on a flat rock that he found and placed the rock in the fire to cook. 10 minutes later, Naruto deemed the meat ready to eat when he came upon the problem of getting the meat out of the fire. He didn't have anything to grab it with, and if he were to try and use a kunai it would either slide right off or he would burn his hand. Cage Bunshin duplicates anything on your person, so go pick up that Tonto that is on the ground behind you and then make some shadow clones. The reach of the Tonto will ensure that you don't get burned, and the clones will make sure the rock doesn't tip over and spill the meat in the fire. Kyuubi explained. Naruto looked behind him to see if there really was a Tonto behind him, and sure enough there was a Tonto behind him, not in the best shape admittedly, but enough for him to get his food out of the fire. Why didn't I notice that before? Naruto thought. One of the tigers was chewing on it. Oh. After retrieving the Tonto, Naruto made 3 Cage Bunshin and the 4 Narutos surrounded the fire. Each reached out with their Tonto so that they each were stabilizing an edge of the rock and slowly lifted the rock out of the fire and put it on the ground. With that done, Naruto dispelled the clones before waiting a minute before digging into his meal. When he finished with his meal, he immediately created a small army of clones to continue what he was doing the day before and summoned Heiko. He would continue on with this pattern for the rest of the week until it came time for him to get his team. Naruto arrived at the academy a couple hours before the team placements were to take place. He wanted to get there early to avoid coming into the class and having all of them stare at him and question why he was a genin when he failed the test. It would just be too troublesome. So he is currently sitting in his usual spot in the back corner with his hood covering his face and looking out the window. 2 hours later, everyone had arrived at the classroom for team placements and a few questioned why Naruto was there like he had predicted. He simply pointed to the hite-8 that he had sewn into his leather coat. The questions stopped after he started leaking ki into the room when people would ask. All the students were sitting in their normal seats that they used during the school year. Choji and Shikamaru were sitting next to each other in the front row, Choji eating his chips and Shikamaru sleeping. Kiba was with some kids that Naruto never took the time to learn the names of, seeing as they would never make it as ninja. Shino was in his corner of the classroom sitting there stoically, probably talking with his bugs. Hinata, A.N. Hinata will not be infatuated with Naruto in this since he is much colder, and I feel like Hinata would never go for that type of guy, was sitting in the middle row trying her best to hide in her coat. Sasuke was stuck between his 2 biggest fangirls, Ino and Sakura, and they pestered him for a date whilst glaring at the other. It was at this moment that Iruka walked in with a very pale, almost snow-white-skinned, student with black hair and pupilless black eyes. He wore a black long-sleeved shirt and black anbu pants. He had the fakest smile that anyone had ever seen plastered on his face and had a scroll in his hand and what looked like inkwells attached to his belt. Alright class, as you know, from today onwards you will be genin for Konoha. You will be expected to uphold the morals of our great village and put your life on the line to protect the village. Let me tell you guys how proud of you I am. And Naruto turned Iruka's speech after that, knowing that he would continue on for another 5 minutes. Okay, so now I will be telling you all your teams. Team 1. Iruka starts going through the team lineup. Team 7 will be Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke. True love prevails. Eat that Ino pig, Sakura screamed, and sigh. Iruka finished. The class all blinked in confusion after hearing that name. They didn't have anyone named Sai in this class. Iruka-sensei, who is Sai? Sakura asked. Oh, how forgetful of me. I forgot to introduce your new student. Sai, would you please stand up and give yourself a small introduction? Iruka said. Sai stood up and looked around the class. Hello, my name is Sai and it is nice to meet all of you. He then sat down with that fake smile still on his face. Now as I was saying, Team 8 will be Hyuga Hinata, Inazuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino. Team 9 is still in rotation, so the next team is Team 10, which consists of Yamanaka Ino, Akamichi Choji, and Nara Shikamaru. Uzumaki Naruto will be under an apprenticeship. Iruka finished. Ino seemed to deflate after hearing who her team was, though it wasn't unexpected. They were the children of the legendary Ino Shika Cho trio. However, that last bit caused her to perk up. Nay, Iruka-sensei, why does Naruto get an apprenticeship? Before Iruka could speak up, Sasuke decided to get his part in. Probably because they know that the Dobi would die on his first mission if he didn't have all the help he could get. Naruto just sat there in the corner seemingly lost in his own thoughts, which wasn't far from the truth. I am going to enjoy breaking that Uchiha pride of his when the time comes. Naruto thought with an evil smirk that couldn't be seen since his hood shadowed his face. After that, the first few senseis came in and took their teams that had the children that would never make it as ninja. After the last of the no-name teams left, the wall exploded and a banner that read, "The Great in Mitarashi Anko," was pinned to the ceiling. When the dust settled, there was a purple-haired woman with pupilless brown eyes dressed in a trench coat, a mesh top, and an orange miniskirt was standing there striking a pose. Kiba stared at the women with lust-filled eyes, obviously undressing her with his eyes. Not that there was much to undress. Shino merely raised an eyebrow at the entrance. The girls in the class all thought of how crazy this lady was, and Sasuke had an almost unnoticeable pink hue on his cheeks, which caused Sakura and Ino to exclaim that the woman was trying to steal their Sasuke-kun. Naruto was for the most part unfazed. Over the years living on the street, he had come to hear about the famous Snake Mistress, and was quite intrigued by all the rumors surrounding her. He never did more than gather information about her, but what he learned was very enlightening. Apparently she was the apprentice to the infamous snake Sanin Orochimaru. She was given his experimental curse mark and was the only one recorded to survive the application. Though she immediately left him after that, she still has to bear the burden of not only being his apprentice but also the curse mark. Okay, Team 8, you are with me. Meet me at Training Ground 40. Anko started. Anko. Hokage-sama told you not to use that training ground for your genin. A voice spoke from the other side of the room close to the door. There, standing just inside the room, were two people. One was a man in his late 20s or early 30s with a full beard and was smoking a cigarette. He was dressed like the average Junin with a blue long-sleeved shirt on rolled up halfway up his forearms covered by a green tactical vest. He also wore blue Anbu-style pants. The only thing that made him stand out was the 12 Ninja Guardian sash that he wore around his waist. The other person was a woman with long black disheveled hair. She had red eyes with a concentric circle within them. She wore a bandage-like dress that was decorated with thorns with a mesh undershirt. She had a single red sleeve on her right arm and wrapped bandages around her forearms and hands. She also wrapped her upper thighs in bandages. I know that, Nai-chan. I was just testing you. Anko pouted. Of course you were, Asuma stated before he turned to the genin. Team 10, you are with me. Follow me to Training Ground 10. And with that, Asuma walked off. Let's go, little Gakis, we are going to be using Training Ground 8 inches, Anko said before she leapt out of the rubble. Uzumaki Naruto, go to Training Ground 13 inches, Kurenai said before she used a shunshin to leave. Naruto got up and started to walk towards the broken window before he stopped when he heard Kiba yell. No fair. The Dobi gets the hot teacher. Kiba complained. If I was not mistaken, Kiba, your team also has a female teacher that seems to love to wear as little clothes as possible. Naruto replied monotonously. I don't think you have any room to complain. Naruto then jumped through the wall on his way to Training Ground 13. When Naruto arrived at Training Ground 13, he immediately made his way to the center of the field where his sensei was standing waiting for him. Okay, Naruto, since you are my apprentice, I will have to get to know you, so I would like you to introduce yourself, telling me your likes, dislikes, hobbies, and goals. I'll start. I'm Yuhi Kurenai. I like genjutsu, gardening, my friends, green tea, and a certain man. My dislikes include perverts, Orochimaru, Icha, and my hobbies are gardening, researching genjutsu, making new genjutsu, and hanging out with my friends. My dream is to have a family. Kurenai said. Okay, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like foxes, I dislike arrogance, my hobby is gardening, and I don't have a dream. Naruto said in an even tone. Great, this kid has about as much personality as a rock. Kurenai thought with a sweat drop. Okay then Naruto. Tomorrow I will assess your skills and from there we will work on what you need the most work on. Kurenai said before she left the training ground. Guess I'll go back to my home in the Forest of Death and continue training. Naruto thought before he took off towards training ground 44. Forest of Death. Finally got it, Naruto thought. So you finished the resistance seal. Good, now we can kick up your physical training to make you stronger and faster, should make that taijutsu style easier. How are you coming along with writing seals with your chakra? Kyuubi asked. I can still only make a single kanji, but I have halved the time it takes for me to place it. That's good, but you need to learn to write more kanji and faster. This skill can make you the most feared ninja in the world if you master it. I know, but it's incredibly difficult. I'll start putting more clones to it now that I got the resistance seal down. Naruto replied. Naruto made 200 clones and they immediately split up into their groups. 10 went to the waterfall to try and stop the water flow using only wind manipulation. He was lucky that he found a jaguar that knew earth manipulation and made him a bridge to stand on, or else he would have tried to split the waterfall while water walking. He now had 30 clones working on writing seals with their chakra while 10 studied fuinjutsu. 50 clones were working on chakra control. He was currently balancing senbon on his fingertips, though he could only balance 3 on each hand before he dropped 1. The other 100 were working on genjutsu and ninjutsu. Naruto himself was about to begin his physical training with the resistance seal. He had already planned out his physical training before. Since he already was a stamina freak and was pretty fast from all the chases he had to avoid, he would focus more on strength, but he wouldn't ignore stamina and speed entirely. So when he finished putting the resistance seal, he quickly got working on his warm-up exercises, which consisted of sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, and squats, 500 of each. Then after that he would run around the training ground for 30 minutes and then jog it for 30 minutes, then walk around it for 10 minutes to cool down. After that he would summon Heiko and get working on his taijutsu. -5 hours later, Naruto had just finished his training for the day. He was finally able to split the waterfall using only wind manipulation. Now he was coating it on his saber claws, making them even sharper. He has also come up with some very good ideas for a couple genjutsu techniques. One genjutsu that one of his clones thought up of and named Kako no Akumu, Nightmares of the Past, had to be the most ingenious thing he had ever thought of. Using a genjutsu to force your victim to live through your past would break just about anyone. Another was to use Kyuubi's Yuki for the genjutsu that would send a small part of the Kyuubi's conscience into the victim. After that it was all up to what Kyuubi wanted to do with them. He is on his way to his apartment to pick up some things before he went back to the forest. He decided that he would just live out there in the forest. The animals in the forest seemed to like him for some reason. He figured that the Kyuubi had something to do with it. He was just going to use his apartment as a storage shed to keep all the stuff he doesn't carry around safe. He was passing one of the training grounds when he heard a large crashing sound. Deciding to go investigate, he made his way towards the sound. When he arrived at the edge of a clearing, he saw 2 green-suited buffoons, a Hyuga, and a panda girl. He knew these people from the academy. They graduated a year ahead of him. The students were Rock Lee, a kid that could not mold chakra to use for ninjutsu or genjutsu. Hyuga Neji, a branch member of the Hyuga clan that had it out for the main house, and Tenten, a weapons-loving girl that couldn't get enough of anything pointy. They were dressed similarly to how they were in the academy, except Lee. He had seemingly taken his sensei's wardrobe and hairstyle. Their sensei was just a larger version of Lee with a Junin flak jacket. If Naruto remembered correctly, his name is Maida Guy, Konoha's best taijutsu user. Figures he would be teaching 2 taijutsu freaks and a weapon mistress. Guy sensei, that was a most youthful demonstration. Lee yelled, "That it was my youthful Lee. Now I want all of you to try and break a tree using that technique." "Go my youthful students," Guy exclaimed. "Hi Guy sensei." Lee yelled before he sprinted off to the nearest tree and attempted to break a tree in half using only his fist. "I'll pass," Neji said as he crossed his arms and started walking towards a training post in the middle of the field to practice his jukin. I'm with Neji on this one, Tenten said before walking towards some dummies that were set up in front of Naruto. You can stop spying on us, Neji called out while looking directly at Naruto, his Byakugan blazing. Naruto slowly stepped out of the trees into the clearing. Who said I was spying? I just heard a crash and decided to check it out, Naruto said as he walked towards Guy. But if I may be so bold, what is this technique that you were talking about? It is a youthful technique that I created, Guy said exuberantly. I based it off of Tsunade's super strength technique, though since I do not have the chakra control required to use her super strength, I channeled chakra to my fist, and when I make contact with an object I release it. Though as I have said, since I do not have the chakra control that Tsunade-sama has, I end up wasting a good amount of the chakra, and the end result is that I do not do as much damage as Tsunade-sama, Guy explained in a rarely heard serious voice reserved for when he is discussing taijutsu or in serious situations. Interesting. It must have taken you quite some time to not only come up with the idea, but to also put it into practice and get good results, Naruto deducted. It did, but through hard work and determination I completed the technique, Guy said, and now I am teaching it to my most youthful genin. Would you like to learn such a youthful technique? Forgive my unyouthfulness, but I do not recall your name. I never gave it. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, Naruto said while taking the hood off his head. I wouldn't expect you to recognize me with myself all covered like that. But I think I will pass on that technique. I just got finished training, though. Do you know any good physical training that I could do? I have been so focused on chakra-based training that I have been neglecting my physical training. Oh no, Tenten murmured as she started to back away from the youthful duo. Naruto-san, I believe that it would be most youthful if you accompanied me and my most youthful student Lee as we do our physical training, Guy yelled. He then took out a notebook from one of the pockets in his vest. Let's see. Today is 5,000 laps around Konoha with a boulder on our backs. Yash Lee, what should we do if we cannot do that? We should have to do 3,000 handstand push-ups, and if we cannot do that, then we must do 4,000 hanging sit-ups. Lee exclaimed with fire in his eyes. And if we cannot do that, then we have to climb the Hokage mountain with one hand 7,000 times, Naruto said calmly. Time seemed to stop and Neji and Tenten just looked at Naruto dumbfounded. He had just agreed to train with the youthful duo. Their workouts were suicide and any sane person would never even think about attempting them, and yet here is someone who is going to train with them and even added on a punishment should they not complete their previous goals. Yash, Naruto-kun, you are most youthful, Lee exclaimed as he ran up to Naruto. I think to make this fair, though, I should add resistance seals to the both of you so you get as much out of the workout as possible. What are these resistance seals you speak of, Naruto-kun? Lee asked. They are a seal that uses chakra to resist the muscles from moving. So if you were to try and lift your arm, there would be a small amount of resistance against the muscles, forcing them to work harder and grow stronger and faster, Naruto explained. Yash, Naruto-kun, would you give me one of these most youthful resistance seals? Lee exclaimed. I would like one of these seals as well, Naruto-kun. Guy added. Of course, let me just draw them up for you. Where do you want them? Naruto asked. At that, both Lee and Guy pulled down their jumpsuits and simultaneously said, over my heart. Naruto blinked twice, then just shrugged and started to draw the seals on over their hearts. Now to raise or lower the resistance, you just channeled chakra to the seal, Naruto explained after he finished. Now let's begin that workout, shall we? After Guy and Lee channeled enough chakra to their resistance seals to where they felt challenged, they nodded and all three headed off to the Hokage mountain to get a boulder. 6 hours later, Naruto had just finished his 3,000 handstand push-ups. He couldn't quite make it 5,000 times around Konoha with a boulder on his back, though that may be because he had just finished his own small workout beforehand. He was now headed to his apartment, again, to get a sleeping bag. He preferred sleeping outside, but he did not like the cold ground that he had to sleep on. As he turned into the red light district, he made his way to his apartment. As Naruto reached the top of the stairs that lead to his room, he came upon quite the sight. There were about 20 people standing outside his room trying to break it down. Good thing I put security seals in my apartment, Naruto thought before a sadistic grin grew on his face. This is gonna be fun. May I help you? Naruto said from behind the mob. The group turned around to see the object of their hate standing there, seemingly uninterested. Yes, demon, we have come to end you and finish what was started all those years ago. One random civilian yelled while he pulled out a lead pipe. Of course you are, but just do my one favor, look into my eyes. Naruto said as he channeled chakra to his eyes. He had been working on a way to cast genjutsu without hand seals, and Kyuubi told him that the Uchiha cast genjutsu using their Sharingan as a medium. So expanding on that, he decided to do the same thing, except he didn't have a Sharingan as a medium. But with the Kyuubi sealed in him, using eye contact wasn't that hard to do. When the mob looked into his eyes, they became entranced. His blue eyes were glowing and they seemed to draw the mob in. Kako no Ikumu, Naruto whispered before the mob's vision went black and they immediately found themselves walking the streets in a brightly lit Konoha. They kept walking, seemingly without control of their body. Then they felt something hit the side of their heads. The body that they were in turned to see a broken bottle lying on the ground next to him. Then they felt strong hands grab them by the shoulder before they were forcibly thrown into an alley. So the little demon thinks that they can just walk around like an innocent little boy? Someone asked. They turned their head toward the voice and saw that it was a rather large man, about 6'7" with large muscles and a dragon tattoo on his right arm. He held a taser in one of his hands and a coil of copper wire in the other. I'm going to have some fun with you now, demon. Before they could do anything, the man rushed forward and slammed them into the wall behind them before stabbing them through the arms and legs with kitchen knives. He then started to unravel the copper wire and started to wrap it around the boy crucified on the wall. When he had wrapped all the wire around the boy, he brought the taser to the end of the wire that he held in a gloved hand. I hope you stay conscious for all of this. It would be a shame if you didn't experience all of this. The man said before turning on the taser and sending a large amount of electricity through the wire and electrocuting the boy. Outside of the genjutsu, all the civilians screamed to the heavens before dropping onto the ground unconscious. They didn't last all that long. Oh well, gotta get my sleeping bag and then back to the forest. And with that, Naruto quickly entered his apartment, got his sleeping bag and took off towards the forest of death. Hey Kurenai-sensei, Naruto said as he dropped in behind his sensei. Kya, Kurenai screamed and jumped away from Naruto, taking out a kunai and turning to face her attacker. Damn, you're loud, Kurenai-sensei, Naruto muttered as he waited for the ringing in his ears to cease. Well, you shouldn't sneak up on me, Kurenai huffed, crossing her arms and turning her head to the side. I wasn't trying to, I just dropped in. Oh, sorry about yesterday if I seemed like I have multiple personalities and you got the cold one that comes out whenever I had to deal with my class. Naruto apologized. Kurenai looked back at Naruto and saw that his eyes had a different light than they did yesterday. Well, at least this won't be boring, Kurenai thought while sighing. It's fine, Naruto. But how many personalities do you have? I think I have 5. Different personalities for dealing with different groups of people, Naruto said. Well, that's interesting. Anyway, let's get on with your skills evaluation. Now, I have heard from many sources that you can outrun and hide from Anbu units. But since I have not seen those skills firsthand, I have recruited some help. Your first test will be on your stealth, and if you are found, it will turn into a chase that will test your stamina. After explaining the test, 2 purple-haired kunoichi and a brown-haired kunoichi appeared next to Kurenai. Naruto took a second to identify the kunoichi. The first purple-haired kunoichi was Anko, whom he had met yesterday. The other purple-haired kunoichi was in an Anbu suit and had a katana strapped to her back. He knew her as Neko, the cat-masked Anbu that would actually look after him. The next girl was an Inuzuka. If the fang tattoos on her face weren't enough to tell him that, then the dogs next to her definitely gave it away. She had a green vest and purple spandex shorts. She also had a tattoo on her right arm. However, the thing that caught his attention immediately were her eyes. They weren't like the other Inuzuka members who had slitted eyes. She had round brown eyes with 2 bangs falling in front of them. Kurenai-sensei, I highly doubt Neko wants to chase me around the village again. That is if she finds me, Naruto said, slightly challenging the Anbu member. The kunoichi's eyes widened slightly when he so easily called Yugo out on her Anbu identity. As if reading their minds, Naruto quickly added, You don't think I wouldn't take the time to learn about those who watch over me, do you? Plus, she is the only purple-haired Anbu in the Corps. Yugo's eyes narrowed slightly after she went over the challenge that Naruto proposed. You honestly think that we won't be able to find you? Well, the Anbu couldn't find me before, so I doubt that you will find me now, even with an Inuzuka. Naruto smirked as he looked over at the dogs. But actions speak louder than words. When does the test start? We will give you 1 minute to hide. The test starts now, Kurenai said. Naruto then disappeared in a burst of smoke. Fuck, Yugo said. Now we don't even know where he could be. Just when the other kunoichi were going to say something, someone popped up behind them. What are the boundaries? Naruto asked. Kya. The kunoichi screamed while taking out their weapons and whipping around to face Naruto. Sensei. That's the second time. Naruto deadpanned. Shut up. Kurenai stuttered, blushing in embarrassment from being caught off guard twice. Okay. But seriously, what are the boundaries? All of Konoha. Anko answered immediately. A wide grin spread across Naruto's face. Good luck, Naruto uttered before he disappeared in a burst of smoke. Well, I guess it's time to go find him. Kurenai muttered before she took off towards Konoha. 5 hours later. Where the fuck is He? Hana shouted whilst pulling her hair in frustration. I don't know. It's like he just disappeared. My snakes can't find anything. Anko replied as a snake slid back into her trenchcoat. Neither can the Haimaru triplets. Hana added. The 4 kunoichi were currently walking through the forest behind the Hokage mountain. They had searched every inch of Konoha twice already, trying to find the elusive blonde, but to no avail. The Haimaru triplets couldn't catch his scent, nor could the snake summons, so they had to rely solely on their eyes and asking around. When they asked around, they quickly learned how despised Naruto was in the village. Most of the people just went on their way, seemingly uncaring about the blonde, while others were praising them for finally putting down the demon. However, when they entered the red light district and starting asking about the blonde, everyone got defensive and suspicious about their motives. They had finally been able to glean enough information to learn that he had gone into the forest behind the mountain, so that's where they were currently searching. They stopped when they heard a twig break off to the left. Thinking they had finally found the elusive blonde, they all sprinted in the direction that they heard the noise from. They leapt into a clearing and started to look around. Yugo took a step forward, and all of a sudden they had to dodge a barrage of wooden shuriken and kunai that were aimed at them. When they landed, they immediately had to dive out of the way of a tree trunk that came crashing down on them. When they rolled to their feet, they immediately fell into a pitfall trap, and a net fabricated from ninja wire was thrown over them. Yugo tried to cut through the wire but soon found out that it was too strong to cut through. So the 4 kunoichi just sat there at the bottom of the pit waiting for someone to come release them. They didn't have to wait long. Did I pass? They heard a voice say from the top of the pit. The 4 kunoichi looked up to see Naruto gazing down on them with an unreadable expression. The kunoichi just stared at him, gawking. They had just been led on a wild goose chase by this kid and then fell into an elaborate trap that he had set up. How did you know we were going to be here? We only decided to come here a few minutes ago, and the tree trunk trap alone takes a good half-hour to set up. Anko asked, slightly impressed by the blonde Jinchuriki. I began setting this up after my first clone poofed. It took me a good 3 hours to set up all the traps in the clearing. There are a lot more that you guys didn't set off. Though I am kinda happy for that. Now I don't have to go around collecting shuriken and kunai from the ground and trees. Naruto said, talking to himself at the end. That still doesn't answer how you knew we were going to be here. Kurenai stated, I hanged clones into civilians and had them give you small hints of information to point you in this direction. Then when you were close enough, I just needed to make a little noise so that you would find the clearing. Naruto replied, a small smile threatening to show itself when he saw the amazed looks on the kunoichi. We just got played by a fresh out of the academy genin. Oh, this is embarrassing. Anko mumbled out. Don't feel bad. I've always been good at trap making, it's just that no one ever knew. Who do you think was pranking the village over the last 5 years? This time the small smile did show itself. That was you. Yugo shouted, shooting a glare at Naruto that meant a lot of pain if she got her hands on him. Probably. But what are you referring to? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow, thinking back to anything he might have done to his favorite Anbu member. You dyed all our masks bright pink that when wet would turn orange. That was the most humiliating day of our lives. Yugo stated, remembering the prank that was pulled on the Anbu. Oh yay, that one. I got a kick out of that one. All those Anbu that are supposed to be invisible to the eyes of Konoha with neon-colored masks. Though it shows how good of security your headquarters has if I was able to sneak in there as a 10-year-old and dye all of your masks without anyone knowing. Yugo was about to retort when she noticed Hana was trembling in rage, throwing a glare so ferocious at Naruto that most people would tremble at the sight of it. But Naruto had faced worse, so he just looked back at her impassively. You seem a bit tense, Hana-chan. Would you like a neck rub? Naruto asked, a small smirk playing on his face. It was you. Hana yelled while clawing at the net, trying her hardest to get to the blonde. Yep, I assume you were talking about the undergarments prank. It was much easier to sneak into your compound than I originally thought. Those dogs of yours are heavy sleepers. Though I think I preferred when I put laxatives in the dog food. That prank was more difficult to pull off, but that's what makes it one of my favorites. Naruto said, a cheeky grin splitting his face. Hana, what are you talking about? Kurenai asked. 2 years ago the Inuzuka compound was raided and all of our undergarments were taken. At first we were shocked someone was able to sneak into our compound, but then there was a knock at the gate. Ka-san went out to see who it was. When she came back she was blushing a bright red that I had never seen before. In her hands were her panties and bras. Apparently whoever had taken our clothes decided to place them in the other clan compounds. Do you know how embarrassing it is to go to the other compounds and ask for your panties back? Especially the stuck-up Hyugas. Hana explained. When I get out of here, Naruto, you are a dead man. Hana yelled, turning back to the blonde. Well, that doesn't really give me any incentive to let you out. Naruto deadpanned. I'll end it quickly. Hana added with a smile. Naruto's eyebrow began to twitch. Not any better. Naruto, let us out of here. You passed the stealth test. Kurenai stated with an air of authority that Naruto found amusing, seeing as she was currently trapped. Fine. I'll let you out. Naruto then jumped down into the pit and started to deactivate the seals that kept the net down and made it nearly indestructible. So that's why I couldn't cut it or lift it. Yugo mused. The second he undid the seals and lifted the net, he was put in a headlock by Anko. I like you, Gaki. You got spunk, Anko said with a grin splitting her face. Before Naruto could reply, he was punched in the stomach by an irate Hana. Hana was about to continue her beating when the Naruto that she punched burst into smoke. Nay, Hana-chan, that wasn't very nice, Naruto said from the top of the pit. That could have really hurt me. I thought we were friends, Hana-chan. Naruto held his heart in mock pain. You wound me so. Stop playing around. Hana yelled and jumped out of the pit and took a swipe at Naruto. Naruto leaned back and dodged the swing. You shouldn't let past actions dictate how you act in the present. They are over and therefore have no more worth. Like hell they do. That embarrassment will loom over me for the rest of my life. Hana charged Naruto and engaged him in a taijutsu battle. She was using her clan's taijutsu style while he was using the Insho Takina Panzasutairu. Well, that's too bad, but it is ultimately you who decide whether that looms over you and controls you or if you move through it. Naruto ducked a swipe that was aimed to tear his throat out. The past doesn't matter, Hana, only the present. What matters is what you do in the present, and currently that is trying to kill a genin who pranked your clan. I don't think that is a very good message you are sending. Naruto leapt back to create some ground between them. Shut up, Hana snarled before the Haimaru triplets landed next to her. Shikyaku no Jutsu. Hana hunched over and her nails started to grow and her canines started to elongate. She then leapt at Naruto along with her companions. Gatenga. Hana and her dogs started to roll and turned into 4 buzzsaw-like projectiles, all honing in on Naruto. Wow, she is pissed, Naruto thought. Well, you kinda did admit to going through her underwear and are the reason for her most humiliating moment in her life. Kyuubi scoffed. Yay, but that still isn't the worst prank I have pulled on people. I have done so much worse. Naruto thought back while preparing to dodge the buzzsaw heading towards him. I don't doubt it, I'm just saying that she is partially justified in her anger. Kyuubi responded. I still think she is going overboard. Naruto then dove to the side right before the buzzsaws made contact with him, ensuring that they wouldn't change direction whilst he was dodging. Hana growled when she missed the blonde and turned back to the blonde only to wind up hanging upside down, a rope wrapped around her ankle. I still have plenty more traps around here. You are fighting me on my turf right now. Naruto smirked. This just seemed to enrage Hana even more. She quickly retrieved a kunai from her pouch and threw it at the rope, cutting it and allowing her to flip down to the ground. Don't think that you can beat me with little tricks like this. Hana snarled before she leapt at the blonde with her canine companions. Naruto again leapt out of the way and turned to the other three kunoichi. Are you just going to let her attack me? He asked them as they stood on the sideline watching the fight. We'll step in if we need to, but it looks like you have got it handled so far. Think of this as your next test. Kurenai stated. Next test huh? I guess I shouldn't hold back then. Naruto's personality immediately changed into an emotionless mask. His eyes lost all hints of warmth and playfulness, being replaced with eyes that looked as cold as a glacier. He brought his arms onto the forearms of his coat, and with 2 puffs of smoke he held his saber claws in his hands. The 4 kunoichi seemed surprised by this new Naruto. It was almost a complete turnaround from what he was just seconds before. This one was serious, and you could tell that he was not going to take this challenge lightly. Naruto settled down into his taijutsu stance. Come Hana. He spoke without an ounce of emotion in his voice. Hana snapped out of her stupor and immediately charged at the blonde. She went for a swipe at his midsection, but he blocked with one of his saber claws. Naruto then pivoted on his front foot and slashed at her with his other saber claw. Hana leapt back, narrowly avoiding the slash. Naruto darted after her and attempted a straight jab at her face. She moved her head to the side, but the edge of the blade still cut her cheek. She leapt away again as 2 of her dogs attempted to maul the blonde. Naruto twisted his body to avoid being bitten by the 2 canines and brought his left leg up and kicked one of the dogs into the other, sending them flying across the clearing where they impacted a tree. He then felt a presence behind him and immediately dropped to the ground. The dog that was attempting to blindside Naruto flew over the blonde. When he was halfway over him, Naruto stood up abruptly, shoving his shoulder into the dog's stomach. The dog flipped and fell onto its back after the hit from Naruto. Before Naruto could do anything, he received a vicious slash to his abdomen. He stumbled back and looked up to see Hana charging at him. He quickly got back into his taijutsu stance and engaged Hana in a short taijutsu bout that lasted a good 15 seconds. When both combatants backed out, they were littered with cuts and bruises. Hana more so, since the Kyuubi was quickly healing all of Naruto's, but you could still see the cuts that were left on his coat. Naruto didn't have any chance to rest as he immediately was dodging 2 of the Haimaru triplets. He quickly glanced across the clearing to see that one of them was still down under a tree. Apparently he didn't kick hard enough to knock both of them out of the fight. He would have to fix that. Naruto jumped over one of the dogs that lunged at him and ducked the next. While the dog was passing over him, he quickly slashed the inside of his legs, cutting the tendons, forcing the dog out of the fight, but not doing any lasting damage. He stood up only to come face to face with a charging Hana. He was about to sidestep her swipe when the only able-bodied dog bit into the back of his leg. Naruto grunted in pain before bracing himself for Hana's swipe. Hana swiped Naruto across the chest and was about to take another swipe at him when her eyes met his. She looked into the ice-cold blue-slitted pupils for but a moment and felt a little tickle in the back of her mind, but just shrugged it off. She went for the next swipe and connected with his face when he burst into black sakura petals. Hana looked at the falling petals before she felt unbearable pain in her stomach. Her vision seemed to snap back to reality, and she noticed that Naruto was now standing at the other side of the clearing, nursing his leg. She looked down at her abdomen and saw a rather large gash that was bleeding pretty bad. Before she could do anything about the wound, she found herself engaged in taijutsu battle that put her completely on the defensive. She idly noted that the last of the Haimaru triplets was out cold, seemingly sleeping. She returned her attention to Naruto just in time to receive a vicious kick to her sternum that sent her flying. Hana landed rather harshly on her back. Her vision blurred for a second before she felt a weight on his stomach. Her vision refocused and she found herself staring into the eyes of Naruto, straddling her with both saber claws criss-crossed over her neck. Yield! Naruto's voice commanded. Hana felt a shiver go down her spine. That voice was so cold, and yet she couldn't help but enjoy the fact that she was being dominated. She was an Inuzuka woman after all, and they were always looking for someone who was alpha material. She was still angry with the blonde boy, but saw that she was not in a situation to do anything about it. So she grudgingly yielded the fight to Naruto. Once Naruto heard her yield, his personality seemed to flip immediately. Not back to the playful one before, but into more of a professional one. That fight was very entertaining, Hana-san. I do hope that you got all of your anger out of your system. It is unhealthy to keep your emotions pent up. Naruto advised politely. Not that you are one to talk. Kyuubi scoffed. The last person I tried to talk about my emotions with tried to use psychological tricks to break me mentally and then used my insecurities against me in the next beating. Yes, it is unhealthy, but getting beaten is much worse. I am just being cautious. Naruto responded. I really need to go through your memories and see what these vermin did to you. Feel free, but you won't like it. Hana blinked owlishly at the blonde for his seemingly instant personality and mood changes. Oh, yay, I guess I'm doing better. That is good to hear. Naruto said, smiling slightly, and started to get up off of Hana. Damn, the Gaki works fast, he is already trying to seduce Hana. Anko's voice sounded through the clearing. When Hana heard it, she looked down at Naruto and saw that they were in a rather intimate position. She blushed crimson and looked back up at Naruto. When she looked into his eyes, she was shocked that his eyes held unfathomable amounts of sadness and despair. When Naruto heard Anko's statement, he was reminded of the fact that his future would hold no children and he would most likely grow old all alone. For a few seconds he lost control of his mask and all of his emotions could be seen clear as day in his eyes. Naruto immediately got up off of Hana and turned to the other kunoichi with eyes that held sadness and no hope. The sight of the eyes made the three battle-hardened kunoichi flinch. Is that all that you require, Kurenai-sensei? Naruto asked, voice devoid of emotion. Yes Naruto, that is all. We will begin training and missions tomorrow, so please meet me at Training Ground 13 tomorrow morning. Kurenai replied, still shocked at the look in her student's eyes. Very well. I will see you tomorrow. Naruto then turned and leapt off into the trees, heading towards the forest of death. The four kunoichi just stayed where they were, frozen in shock. What was that? Yugo asked after she shook herself from her stupor. He looked so sad. Almost dead, Hana said, still lying on the ground staring at the area that Naruto leapt towards. Forest of Death. Kit, what the hell happened back there? Kyuubi asked. Just a reminder of what I will never have. Naruto replied solemnly. What are you talking about? I could show you the memory if you want. Yay, bring it up. So Naruto brought back the memory of the darkest day of his life. Kyuubi watched the memory with an utterly horrified and disgusted expression. By the end of the memory, Naruto could hear the Kyuubi retching in his cage. That is worse than what even the deepest pits of hell could conjure up. Kyuubi said. Yay. I always find it amusing when they call me a demon and yet they do stuff that would make the most ruthless demon quake. You know Naruto, I could try and get it back. I can't do it right now, but I could start looking into ways to get it back. Kyuubi said, using Naruto's name to show how serious he was. I would like that, Kyuubi, thank you. Kurama. Kyuubi said. Pardon? Naruto questioned. My name is Kurama. I feel like with what you had to go through, you have earned the right to know my name. Kurama clarified. Well then, thank you, Kurama. Naruto woke up under the tree that he now calls home to find the clearing he usually trained in filled with animals of all kind. He immediately recognized the tigers that he met the first day he started to live here, but there were also bears, lions, tortoises, and wolves. They were all just lying there like they had been sleeping there the whole night, almost like they were keeping watch. What is going on here? Why are all these animals here? Naruto questioned. They felt your distress and anguish last night. Since you live in the forest, they see you as one of their own and feel the need to protect you if you need it, as they would for any of the animals in this forest. Kurama explained, being more in tune with animal behavior. I don't know how to explain it. I've never had anyone do this for me. It's surreal. Naruto thought in awe. They treat me better than anyone in the village and I don't even know any of them. Is this what having friends is like? To always have someone there for you no matter what? I wouldn't know, Kit. I have never had a friend. Kurama replied. Well, I guess I will have to be your first friend. Naruto thought back with smirk. I don't know how to respond to that. You would agree to be my friend even though I am a demon that nearly destroyed your village and basically ruined your life? Kurama thought, flabbergasted. Well, I don't believe all demons are evil, nor are all angels good, it is all a matter of perspective. You have been told for so long that you are evil that you have just accepted that you are evil. And yet what is evil? Just a word that defines someone's opinion. What the masses of people think is evil may be different from your definition of evil. It's just a word, nothing more. Naruto thought, if you were truly evil you wouldn't have agreed to help me and would have just let me go on my way as an idiot, nor would you have told me your name. You seem to hold your name in high regard, and for you to give me your name must have been a big deal. You destroying this village does not matter to me. I hold no love for this village, but there is something keeping me here, like something great will happen in my life if I stay here, but I wouldn't risk my life for this place if it came down to it. And you haven't ruined my life at all, we are both victims here, so I would be honored to be your friend. Wow, when did you become a philosopher, Kit? Kurama thought sarcastically. Don't expect anything like that to come back for a while, I don't like giving speeches. Naruto walked out of the shelter of the roots and made his way into the clearing. When he started to walk past the sleeping animals they started to rouse and all turned to look at Naruto. Thank you all for your support, I appreciate it. I have never had anyone do this for me before, so this is a very big moment for me. I promise that if any of you need my help at any time I will come as soon as possible to assist you in anything you need. Thank you. And with that all the animals bowed their heads in acknowledgement and started to make their way out of the clearing. I guess I should go get ready for training and missions that I will be getting today. Naruto thought as he made his way to a stream close by. He quickly took a bath and unsealed some clothes that looked identical to what he always wore, and put them on before making his way towards Training Ground 13. Training Ground 13. Naruto walked into the clearing of Training Ground 13 and found that he was the first one to arrive. He decided to sit under a large tree and wait for his sensei to arrive. A few minutes later Kurenai showed up to find her student meditating underneath a tree on the far side of the clearing. She took this time to really examine him. His black leather coat covered everything and during the night would basically make him invisible to anyone that couldn't see chakra. The hood covered his face so no one could see his face, adding a mysterious flair to him. During his fight with Hana yesterday she had seen that he also wears all black underneath the coat. It seems he really doesn't like to stand out. What really intrigued her though was that he had seals in his coat. She had seen when he had unsealed his saber claws and doubted that anyone would willingly help Naruto with seals, let alone draw some on his coat. Which meant that he had to draw those seals on his own, so he was studying Fuinjutsu and was at least adept at it. Thinking back to the fight with Hana he showed that he was much better than the reports from his academy told. He was supposed to be the dead last. He was marked as worst in taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu. He was the best when it came to trap making and stealth, but that was it. He hardly paid attention in class and spent most of his time in the corner of the class away from everyone. So unless he was hiding his real skill from everyone during his academy days, which was entirely possible, then he learned incredibly quickly during the 1-week break between graduation and team assignments. This apprenticeship would be very interesting. When she was done examining her student she began to make her way over to him. After the first few steps Naruto's eyes snapped open and looked towards Kurenai. Seeing who it was he immediately relaxed and stood up from his meditation. Good morning Kurenai-sensei, are we going to start with missions or will we be training first? Naruto asked as he made his way over to his sensei. We will start with missions, we don't want to get stuck with the bad missions, plus after your fight with Hana yesterday I feel like you're doing pretty well in your training. Being able to beat a Chunin in combat is very impressive for a green genin. Kurenai praised. I wouldn't really call that a fight, nor would I have beaten her if she was clear-headed. I used her emotions against her. She also couldn't fight at her full potential because she had to be wary of traps that I may have set up. Naruto responded. That may be, but you were still able to hold your own against a much stronger opponent, which is very much praiseworthy. Don't sell yourself short, Kit. She may have not been clear in the head and was wary of your traps, but to lure your opponent into that fighting situation requires a lot of patience and skill. You also did not reveal all of your skills. You could have used some of the jutsu you learned and released your resistance seals. While you are not yet ready to fight higher caliber ninja, if you two were to have both fought at full strength, without using my chakra, it would have been a very hard-fought battle. Kurama added. I guess. Hokage Tower. Oh, welcome Kurenai-san, Naruto-kun. What can I do for you? Sarutobi asked as they walked into the mission room. Hokage-sama, I didn't know you would be handing out missions today. Kurenai stated, quite surprised that the Hokage was handing out missions. He usually left that to Chunin, usually teachers during the school break. Oh ho ho, I like to give out the missions on the first day that the genin teams are together. So what can I get you? Sarutobi replied. Well, what do you have? Kurenai asked, feeling a little nervous getting her mission straight from the Hokage the first day of having a student. Well, let's see, shall we? We have walking the Inuzuka's dogs, painting the fences along the southeast park, cleaning up the southwest park, and catching Tora. Those are all the missions we have at the moment. Some more should come in later, but since you are here, what would you like? Before Kurenai could answer, Naruto decided to speak up. We'll take all of them. Kurenai snapped her head towards Naruto and stared at him incredulously. Naruto, if we were to take all those missions, it would take us all day to finish them. We wouldn't have any time to train. I'll just use Kage Bunshin to do the job, sensei. I need the money from these missions. I no longer get an allowance from the village now that I am a ninja. I have to support myself financially. Naruto explained to his sensei. Well, are you sure you want to catch Tora? That cat is hellish for a whole genin squad. You being on your own will make that even harder. Kurenai tried to get him to lessen the load a bit. I'm good with animals, Naruto responded while walking out of the office with the papers for the missions. Inuzuka compound. Naruto decided to leave his clones to painting the fences and cleaning up the park. He himself would walk the Inuzuka dogs and then go find Tora. So you are the one that will be walking our dogs today? Naruto heard from behind him. Naruto turned around to find himself looking at the head of the Inuzuka clan. Sume was the epitome of a tomboy. She had short, shaggy brown hair and the ever-present fang tattoos and the slitted eyes that are shared by all Inuzuka members, except Hana. She wore a green Junin flag jacket and wears a black tracksuit underneath. Yes, that would be me. Naruto answered. Well, I don't know how you plan on walking our dogs as one guy, unless your sensei decides to help you out a bit. Sume responded, looking over towards Kurenai. That won't be necessary, Naruto states before Kurenai can get a word in. Naruto then makes a hand seal that is quickly becoming one of his favorites and creates 3 clones to help him walk the dogs. Well, aren't you just full of surprises? Sume states, looking at the clones. She decides to poke one to see if it really was corporeal. When she felt resistance, instead of her hand phasing through the body, she was honestly surprised that a genin knew such a high-level technique. But she had heard rumors of a genin that learned the Kage Bunshin, she just never knew who. I guess you won't have any problems handling this on your own then. Just take them up to the northwestern park, walk them around it and bring them back. They will probably be a bit rowdy and tough to handle, but I think you should be able to handle them. Very well, I'll be back in about an hour. Naruto said as he took the leashes for the dogs and divided them amongst his clones and started walking towards the northwestern park. He seems like a very hard-working young man. It seems you have a very good student on your hands, Kurenai. His work ethic alone would have made him go far in our career. With proper guidance he could become a force to be reckoned with in the future. Sume said as she watched Naruto leave the dogs. Yay, but I almost feel like he is working too hard. On top of this mission he also took cleaning the southwestern park and painting the fences at the southeastern park. He also decided that he will be catching Tora, though he wanted to do that himself, so he will be doing that after he gets done walking your dogs. Kurenai stated, worried for her student. Taking up so much responsibility all at once is not good. Someone his age should never have this much responsibility. While that is true, you have to remember who you are talking about. This kid has gone through things that would break even Ibiki. He has responsibilities that no one his age should have. He probably feels like he can handle this, and he probably needs the money now that he is a ninja. The civilian council was already very irritable about giving that child any of the tax money that they collect from their businesses. It took the Hokage threatening them with illegally withholding money from a Konoha citizen to get them to comply. Sume explained, even after all that they only gave him the bare minimum and would donate some of his allowance to the companies that the civilians owned. I guess that would explain why he is taking so many missions at once, but that is still a lot to do for a genin. If he needs help, why wouldn't he just ask me for it? That's why I am here in the first place, Kurenai said, trying to find out a way to help her student. He has been alone all his life, Kurenai. He doesn't trust people. He has had to do everything on his own for his entire life. He isn't going to change just because there is someone in his life that he can trust. He doesn't even know if he can trust you yet. He doesn't know you. To him you are just another person in this village that may or may not hold a grudge against him for his tenant. Sume continued to explain. Just give him some time and he will come around. Show him that he can trust you and you will be able to break into his shell. I guess that is all I can do. Thank you, Sume. Now I have to go catch up with him and see if I can start getting him to open up. Kurenai said as she started to jog after her student. -1 hour later. During the walk, Naruto got to know the dogs of the Inuzuka a lot better. They are very similar to the animals of the Forest of Death. They can pick up on your mood and are very protective about their family. Naruto made it a point to quickly integrate himself into their family so that walking them would be less of a hassle. He proved himself as being good with animals when the dogs accepted him about halfway through the walk. The dogs became noticeably less rowdy and attempted to drag Naruto and his clones less and less. Eventually they would just go where Naruto wanted them to. They would occasionally venture off on their own, curiosity getting the better of them, but they would always come right back. After a while Naruto dispelled his clones and let the leashes go. The dogs never made a move to run. When it was time to return the dogs to the kennels, Naruto ran into Team 10 cleaning said kennels. They looked less than pleased about the chores that they had to complete, and Asuma was just standing on the side thanking Kami that he did not have to do these chores, just supervise. Troublesome, Shikamaru said as he saw the dogs coming. Well, my little genin, it seems as though you didn't clean the kennels in time. Hopefully next time you will work a bit harder to get the job done on time. Asuma scolded as he too saw the dogs returning from their walk. Maybe if you had helped us we would have gotten done on time, Asuma-sensei. Ino yelled as she made her way out of the pen she was cleaning, completely covered in filth. Now Ino, these missions are to help you build a sense of responsibility as new genin and as a team. Asuma explained. You are also part of the team, Asuma-sensei. Ino retorted. I already have a sense of responsibility. My job is to foster that sense in you guys so that you become leader material and can then be promoted through the ranks. Asuma explained, taking a drag on his cigarette. Asuma, put that out, you're going to kill yourself with that. Kurenai scolded as she came walking up to the team. I'll die on a mission long before I die from smoking. Kurenai, are you that worried about me, sweetie? Asuma replied. Save flirting with each other for later, I doubt your teams want to hear it. Naruto stated as he strolled up with the dogs in tow. Both Junin blushed in embarrassment and looked away sheepishly. At that moment Sume decided to come out and was quite surprised at what she was looking at. Naruto had all the dogs surrounding him. None had their leashes on and weren't running. They also seemed to really like Naruto, if the way that they constantly rubbed against his leg was any clue. Damn kid, you got the pups to like you in no time flat, that's quite impressive. Sume praised, the pups don't take a liking to just anyone, you have to be family for them to accept you. I'm just good with animals, that's all. Naruto responded as he led the dogs to the kennels. When the dogs were going into their kennels they all turned back to look at Naruto as if asking if he was going to come back. Don't worry guys, I'll come back and walk you again sometime. In the meantime be good to anyone who walks you, okay? But give them a bit of a challenge, can't make stuff too easy on them, nay? Naruto smirked. The Inuzuka dogs all barked in agreement and went into their kennels, most of which were clean. Sume, if you ever need someone to walk your dogs again just let me know, I'll also clean out the kennels if you need that done as well. Naruto declared as he turned away from the dogs to look at Sume. Sume was quite taken by this young man. Most people didn't like walking the dogs and no one liked to clean the kennels, and yet here is a young man who volunteered to do both if the need ever arose. At least we won't have to clean the kennels ever again. Choji spoke up, for once not eating since even he didn't want to eat after what he just had to clean. You didn't even completely clean the kennels, you got through about half of them in the time it took Naruto to walk the dogs, which is about an hour. You guys need to pick up the pace if you ever want to get past these chores. Asuma scolded his team. Kurenai-sensei, it's time we go find Tora, then after that we could get in some training. Naruto said as he started to walk towards the forest surrounding Konoha. Ouch, you guys got stuck with Tora. Good luck with that, Asuma said as he watched the blonde walk away. He actually requested it. I tried to get him out of it but he was adamant about taking the mission, said he was good with animals and that he would be able to catch Tora. Kurenai responded as she shook her head, guess he'll just have to learn the hard way. Kurenai then walked after her student. Outskirts of Konoha. Naruto was walking through the forests outside the walls of Konoha at a leisurely pace. He knew that he would come upon Tora eventually, so he was in no real rush. He learned that patience was rewarded handsomely from all his pranks and stakeouts that he did. As he was walking through the forest he came upon a family of foxes. There were 2 adults and 2 kids, and they just seemed to be enjoying the day. All of a sudden a kunai cut through the air and made its way towards the family of foxes. Thinking fast, Naruto jumped in front of the foxes and unsealed his saber claws. He deflected the kunai into the ground and glared at where the kunai came from. So the demon is protecting his own kind. How sweet, came a voice as a figure could be made out coming out of the bushes. When the figure was visible you could easily tell it was a genin ninja, not a green genin but a genin nonetheless. And for him to be a genin and know about the kyuubi, then he had to be a really old genin, which also meant that he had to be a horrible ninja. I suggest you leave before you get yourself in way over your head, Naruto warned, slipping into his taijutsu stance. Oh, so the fox is defensive about his brethren. Well, I guess I get to kill more than I bargained for on this hunt. The genin sneered as he too slipped into the academy taijutsu stance. So be it, and with those words Naruto rocketed off towards the genin at high speeds. The opposing genin was caught off by the speed of his opponent and was unable to block the first blow to his stomach. The saber claws cut into his stomach and left a deep gash that would surely hinder further movement and would eventually knock the boy out in a minute if he didn't stop the bleeding. You little pest, the boy bellowed as he took a wild swing towards Naruto. Naruto just brought up a saber claw in defense and the boy punched straight into the edge of the claw, cutting deep into his fingers, yet luckily not severing them. Ah! The boy screamed, recoiling while holding his wounded hand and slightly bent over due to the pain in his stomach. Naruto started to walk towards the boy. Knowing that he could do nothing, the boy started to back away. No, have mercy. Please, the boy shouted frantically, backpedaling. He eventually stepped on the kunai he had thrown earlier and lost his balance, falling on his back. You will lose consciousness in a few seconds. If I ever find you hunting foxes again, I will end you, are we clear? Naruto threatened. The boy frantically nodded his head before his vision started to fade. After a few seconds he lost consciousness and fell limp on the ground. Naruto sighed and created a clone to take the boy to the hospital. It wouldn't do for him to die for something as petty as this. Naruto turned towards the foxes and analyzed them. They all seemed to be looking at him as if giving him a silent thank you. He couldn't tell, but that's what it felt like. If you guys want to live in safety, I suggest you either leave Konoha or go to the Forest of Death. No one ever goes in there without good reason, and all the animals in there take care of each other like a family. Naruto told the foxes, hoping they would understand him. He felt a bit crazy talking to animals as if they could understand him, but when he saw the foxes nod and take off towards Training Ground 44, he knew that they understood him. Well, time to go find Tora, Naruto whispered to himself as he began to walk through the forest once again. It was about midday when Naruto finally came upon Tora sunbathing in a clearing somewhere south of Konoha. Naruto decided to just go up and talk to the cat and see if he could work some more of his magic with animals that he seems to have. Hey there Tora, how's it going? Naruto asked as he walked into the clearing. The cat immediately leapt onto its feet and tensed, ready to take off in any direction if it needed to. It would not go back to its owner. That was torture that no one would ever be able to get out of with their sanity. Don't worry Tora, I am just here to talk to you. You run away so often it seems that you are having trouble in your house. I could help you out with that if that's what you need, to have some sense talked into your owner. Naruto assured the cat. Tora seemed to relax after he heard Naruto assure her that he would talk to her owner so that she would no longer have to be on the receiving end of those death hugs anymore. It seemed as though Naruto really did have a way with animals. To get even the notoriously bad-tempered Tora to loosen up is not small feat. Okay then, let's go back and meet your owner then, nay? Naruto said as he turned around and started to make his way back to Konoha with Tora following close behind him. That was easier than I thought it would be. I thought I would have to talk to her more, but at least I'm not wasting my time. Naruto thought. I hope you know that you just did the impossible. That cat doesn't like anybody. Kurama voiced. Maybe everybody else just approached her wrong. She's a frightened cat and just ambushing her will make her even more scared, and when you finally catch her she'll just try anything to get away. Naruto reasoned. Kurenai, who kept herself hidden just outside the clearing, could not believe what she was seeing. First her student lures her and her friends into a trap when they were testing him, then he proceeded to fight Hana and win. Now today he has taken a large amount of missions, has been accepted by the Inuzuka dogs, beat up some random genin that was hunting foxes, and has now calmed the ever-irritated Tora and now has the cat willingly following him back to the mission center to go back to her owner. This kid is impressing her at every turn, and she hasn't even known him for more than 2 days. Mission Center. Finished with the mission Hokage-sama. Tora has been brought back, Naruto announced as he strode up to the desk. Sarutobi looked up at Naruto and had his jaw drop when he saw Naruto in front of him with Tora happily curled up in his arms. No one has ever come back from that mission unscathed. That cat could get out of everything you threw at it and would fight all the way back to the mission center to get free of its captives, and yet here is Naruto with the cat happily purring away. Oh my Tora-chan! A scream came from the other side of the room. When Naruto turned to look at the woman that was making her way over to him, with arms wide open ready to crush whatever got in between them, he realized why Tora always ran away. Madam Shijimi, a word if you may. Naruto asked politely as he held Tora away from the daimyo's wife. Oh, but of course. Anything for the person who saved my Tora-chan. Madam Shijimi replied. Well, this is about Tora. She feels that her home life is, well for a lack of a better word, bad. I don't know what exactly she doesn't like about it, but I would recommend that you try and find out so that Tora no longer feels the need to run away from you all the time. Naruto explained. Oh my Tora-chan, I am so sorry if I have been mistreating you in any way. Just let me know what is wrong and I will fix it immediately. Shijimi exclaimed as she took Tora from Naruto's hands and smothered it between her bosom. Madam, I think I know what keeps making Tora run. Naruto's sweat dropped. Oh, and what would that be, young man? She asked, ever curious of what she'd do to help her Tora out. Don't squeeze her so tight. She looks uncomfortable. Naruto pointed towards the cat whose eyes were bugging out. Oh Tora-chan, I am so sorry. Shijimi shouted as she loosened her grip on the cat. Tora immediately relaxed into her owner's grip and nuzzled into her. Thank you, young man. I hope to see you again in the future. After Madam Shijimi had left, Naruto collected the money he earned from all the missions he completed that day and made his way towards Training Ground 13. Training Ground 13. As Naruto entered the training ground, Kurenai stopped following him in the shadows and decided to get ready to train him, but first she needed to know how good he truly was. After beating a Chunin when reports showed that he could hardly hold his own against academy students, she had some investigating to do. Okay, Naruto, it's time for your training to get started, though I will need to see your skills since my reports on you are outdated. Kurenai told Naruto as she strolled towards the blonde. Since I have already seen a good bit of your taijutsu, I will just test you on ninjutsu and genjutsu since I haven't seen your skills in those areas. Alright, what do you want to see then? Naruto asked. Well, for ninjutsu I would just like to see the basic academy jutsus and any that you may picked up on your own. Kurenai answered. Well, I can't do the basic bunshin, so I will have to use the cage bunshin. Naruto reminded. Just skip the bunshin then. Kurenai responded curtly. Okay. Naruto was then obscured by smoke, and when the smoke dissipated there stood an exact replica of Kurenai. It even had the concentric ring in her eyes that most people overlooked. Wow! Kurenai had no other way to explain how good this transformation was except that it was amazing. He did not need hand seals nor did he need a verbal command, and he created a perfect replica of her. For a new genin to be that technically sound in any technique is a feat in itself. Quickly snapping out of her stupor, she regained her air of professionalism. Alright, now show me the Kawarimi. Naruto quickly shifted back into his normal form before replacing himself with a nearby twig. Again with the no hand seals nor a verbal command. He has mastered those two jutsu to the absolute highest degree. What else have you been hiding? Kurenai thought. Very good. Now do you have any ninjutsu that you would like to show me? Naruto smirked when he thought about how surprised his sensei after he used his next jutsu. Very well, Kurenai-sensei. Naruto took a few steps away from Kurenai and turned away from her and started a short set of hand seals. Fuuten. Kami Oroshi. Naruto thrust his hands out in front of him, releasing a vortex of wind that tore through the trees at the edge of the clearing. Naruto looked down at his hands to see a few cuts rapidly healing. Still haven't mastered it yet. Kurenai stood there wide-eyed after watching her student show off such a powerful jutsu like it was nothing. It was also an elemental jutsu, which raised the difficulty of learning it even further. This kid is at Chunin level already, there is no need for her to even train him. Well, there is still genjutsu that he probably has no talent in. Very good Naruto. Kurenai stuttered as she was trying to come to terms with getting such a gifted child as her apprentice. Though she still needed to see if he was any good with genjutsu to see how gifted he actually was. Now I am going to put you in a genjutsu and we'll see how long it takes for you to break out of it. Naruto had to hold in a chuckle when she said that. The fact that only very strong genjutsus could affect him meant that he would breeze through this test. Okay sensei, I am ready. Kurenai held the ram seal as she channeled her chakra to infiltrate Naruto's system. However, she was surprised when the chakra was rejected from his system. Thinking it was just a fluke, she tried again and was met with the same result. Scrunching her brow in concentration, she tried a stronger genjutsu, but was met with the same exact result as before. None of her genjutsus were affecting the blonde. Getting frustrated, she tried her favorite genjutsu and one that no one has ever broken out of. She went through a short series of hand seals before whispering, "Megan. Jubaku Satsu." Naruto was suddenly wrapped in the roots of a tree that appeared out of nowhere as Kurenai disappeared. So she got tired of the kiddie tricks. Naruto thought. He quickly pulsed Kurama's chakra and freed himself from the genjutsu. That was an interesting genjutsu, Kurenai-sensei. Would you mind teaching me it sometime? Naruto asked. Kurenai was shocked at how fast Naruto was able to free himself from the clutches of her genjutsu, while inwardly she was ticked that her genjutsu was broken so easily. No one had ever broken that genjutsu, and then here a mere genin breaks it in less than 10 seconds. Before she let her emotions get the better of her, she reminded herself that she was his mentor and she should be proud of his achievements, even if she had nothing to do with them. Maybe later. I am impressed by your ability to fend off genjutsu. I wasn't even able to affect you with my genjutsu until I used one of the strongest in my arsenal. You were even able to break that genjutsu, which no one has ever done before. Could you explain how you could do all that? Kurenai asked, honestly curious how her pupil was able to do all the things he did. Well, there are some good things that come with being a Jinchuriki. Naruto answered while subconsciously putting his hand on his stomach. Oh, Kurenai didn't know what to say. She probably stirred some very horrid memories of his past if the lost look in his eyes were anything to go by. Sorry if I brought up something you would rather not remember. No, it's fine, sensei. One should never forget their past. It leads to be the answer to many questions in the future. Naruto replied, still in a bit of a daze. Well, you expressed an interest in genjutsu. How did you figure out that you had any talent in genjutsu? Usually shinobi with large chakra reserves are not all that great at genjutsu. Kurenai asked, trying to change the subject. Oh, I was looking at some jutsu scrolls and saw the name of a jutsu that I thought looked cool and tried it out. When I learned that it was a genjutsu, I just started to learn more and more about it and practice it. Naruto lied, not really wanting anyone to know that he was having conversations with Kurama. No need to get the village in an uproar. After a while I even created my own genjutsu. You created your own genjutsu? Kurenai asked, astonished that someone so young could create any type of jutsu. Can I see it? I really don't think I should use it on you. It's not the best of experiences. Naruto answered hesitantly, not wishing to use his genjutsu on anyone he considered neutral or friendly towards him. Naruto. I am a Junin of Konoha and a genjutsu specialist. I am the best genjutsu user in this village. I think I can handle what you came up with. Kurenai stated sternly, firmly believing that she could handle just about any jutsu that the kid could come up with. Alright Kurenai-sensei. Naruto gave in. I really wish I could control which memories I sent into other people's minds. I am going to need to work on that later. Naruto thought before channeling chakra to his eyes and looking into his sensei's eyes. Kako no Akumu. Kurenai's vision went black, and when she was able to see again, it was night time. She tried to look around but quickly found out she was not in control of her body. As she was thinking about her situation, she started to hear shouts and screams coming from behind her. The body Kurenai was inhabiting turned around only to come face to face with a large mob. The mob was brandishing anything and everything they could find out in the open as weapons, whether that be wooden boards, fence posts, or broken bottles. Kurenai turned around and started to sprint as fast as she could in the opposite direction. Knowing that she was just along for the ride, she decided to try and decipher the genjutsu. It was a very interesting illusion seeing as it keeps the victim from moving their bodies the way they wanted to. Instead, the caster has complete control over the movements of their body. Kurenai took a turn down an alley only to run straight into a net of ninja wire. When she turned around, she found herself cornered by the mob from earlier, and they all had a gleam in their eyes that disgusted Kurenai. The mob quickly closed in on Kurenai and started to beat her with the impromptu objects they had picked up along the street. She could feel each blow that was dealt to her, hear her bones cracking each time someone landed an extremely heavy blow on her small and frail body. She decided that enough was enough and tried to escape the genjutsu. She focused on her chakra, blocking out the pain, and prepared to stop her chakra flow. She stopped her chakra flow and then pulsed her chakra to end the genjutsu, though she continued to feel the pain. She looked up and was greeted with the image of a large man dressed in a red button-down shirt and black pants standing in front of her. Kurenai frantically tried to release herself from the genjutsu, but she was unsuccessful in all her attempts. She even tried to use pain to break herself out, but remembered that she could not control her body. She started to look around at the mob and noticed the sadistic gleam in their eyes and saw their lips moving, but she couldn't hear what they were saying. She concentrated on her hearing and was just able to pick up a little of the chant that they were yelling. Kill the demon, finish the job, avenge our brethren. Slowly she was able to hear more and more of what they were saying, and she was incredibly shocked at what she was hearing. She was scared out of her mind of what was going on. There was no way that she could get out of this illusion, and she was at the mercy of a large mob. Her body moved to the left a little and she was able to catch a glimpse of herself from a nearby puddle and gasped. What she saw was a child, no older than 8, with sun-kissed blonde hair, brilliant blue eyes and whisker marks on his cheeks. At that moment she figured out what this genjutsu did. It put the victims into the past experiences of the caster, and Kurenai was experiencing one of the beatings that Naruto endured over the years. She quickly came back to her senses when she heard someone start a monologue while her body was hoisted up onto a post. Today, my fellow citizens, is the day that we defeat the demon. Too long has it been hiding among us and fooling our Hokage into thinking that it is an innocent child. Too long has it been planning its destruction of our home village. Too long has it been allowed to roam free while we must cower in fear of when it will once again return to finish what it started all those years ago. But how do we do such a thing, you may ask? Well, the answer is simple. There is no way to kill the demon permanently. We have all read up on demons in hopes of finding a way to rid ourselves of it, and yet we have found nothing. Therefore, we must take matters into our own hands, and instead of attempting to kill the demon, we must break it. The large man from earlier shouted. When the man finished his speech, he turned to Kurenai with a different kind of gleam in his eyes. Kurenai knew the look in his eyes that was directed at her body, or Naruto's body. It was one of lust, perverted satisfaction, and glee. The man quickly approached Kurenai and took off her pants and turned her body around. She heard the sound of a zipper unzipping before she heard something fall to the ground. She was even more afraid of what was happening to her now than she ever was in her entire life when her vision went black yet again. She opened her eyes to find herself in the clearing of Training Ground 13 once again, and Naruto was standing next to her with a hand on his arm, probably to dispel the genjutsu. Sorry about that, sensei. When you didn't respond after the first 10 seconds, I got worried and broke you out of it. I'm sorry if you had to experience anything horrible, Naruto stated, really not liking the idea of hurting someone who was not prejudiced towards him. He also didn't like the thought that he could have used a memory that would mentally scar even the most battle-hardened shinobi to ever live. Naruto, does that genjutsu, does it implant a memory of your past into the victim's psyche and have them go through an experience of your life? Kurenai asked, still quite shaken with her experience in the genjutsu. Yes, I figured that my life is possibly the worst thing anyone would have to live with and decided to use it to my advantage. Though I still cannot control which memories I send into my victim. I need to continue training with that until I can perfect it. Naruto explained, even more afraid that he sent her into one of the darkest memories that he has had to live through. Which memory were you sent to? He asked, almost dreading the answer. I was in a memory of you when you were about 8 years old. You were running from a mob and took a turn into an alley and ran into a web on ninja wire. There you were beaten and then tied to a pole. And then, oh my Kami, you, Naruto, how bad was your life? Kurenai spoke, still completely shaken by her experience and worried for her pupil after seeing a glimpse of his past. Naruto, knowing which memory she had to experience, flinched and grimaced. That was a horrible memory that he had used on her, his first rape. Not something anyone would ever want to live through. I'm sorry you had to live through that, sensei. How far did my memory get before I got you of it? Naruto asked, hoping he got her out of it in time. Rape was rape whether it's real or you experience it through a genjutsu. I wasn't raped. You got me out before that. But you are dodging the question, Naruto. How bad was your life? Kurenai demanded. You don't want to know, sensei? I'll see you tomorrow for missions. Naruto said before disappearing in a swirl of black sakura petals. Kurenai looked at the spot where her student was just a bit ago before sighing sadly. Naruto, just what have you had to endure? Kurenai thought before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. When Naruto got back to the Forest of Death, he immediately made a large platoon of clones and had them work on his genjutsu so that he could control what memories he sent to his victims. He didn't want to send a potential ally into a genjutsu that would mentally break them. He also wanted to be able to use it for T&I, and if the genjutsu turned the person into a vegetable during an interrogation, then he just lost a potentially huge source of information. As his clones worked on perfecting his genjutsu, he went off and did physical training to increase his speed and strength. He saw how fast and strong Lee was with only his muscles, no chakra. He was amazed at what he was able to accomplish with just hard work and determination. The ability to move that fast and hit that hard without channeling chakra through your legs is just amazing. He could only imagine what he could do if he were to channel his chakra through his muscles. The only thing holding him back is the fact that he can't mold chakra externally for ninjutsu or genjutsu, but he more than made up for it with his taijutsu. He started his laps around the clearing with his resistance seal set one level higher than it was the day before. He would be able to rapidly go through the levels because of his ability to heal quickly. His muscles would be able to heal themselves and be stronger than they were the day before, or even the hour before. It was almost unfair how fast he could increase his strength, but he figured he deserved the ability seeing what he had to go through. When Naruto finished his laps, he went over to two rocks that he had carved into the shape of dumbbells. He also put gravity seals on them so that they were much heavier than a hunk of stone, and he could constantly adjust it as he got stronger. He started out with curls while walking up and down a tree. This not only made him stronger, but also helped him with his multitasking and ability to subconsciously perform the tree walking exercise so that he wouldn't have to think about it in battle. When he was comfortable with his ability to tree walk subconsciously, he would move on to water walking. While Naruto was performing his exercises, he started to think about what missions he would do now that he is a genin. Though he didn't show it, he was extremely excited to be able to take missions and possibly get out of the village. The few times he had actually been out of the village were the times when he was ran out of there and needed a place to hide. But now he would be able to go out on business. It just filled him with a sense of accomplishment knowing that all he had endured is somehow paying off. Though he wondered when he would be able to get a mission outside the village. He knew that only C rank and above missions took you outside the village, and fresh genin didn't get those for a while in their three-man squads, so it would probably take even longer for him to take a C rank, seeing as he is just one person. As Naruto finished all his exercises for the day, he dispelled his clones. Holding his head due to the intense memory feedback, he started to sort through the memories. He was pleased to see that he was able to control what time frame the memories he implanted into his victim came from. Not perfect, but close enough that he won't accidentally break someone if he used it on them. Feeling that he had gotten a good training session in, he decided that it was time to get some sleep and went to his tree. Training Ground 13. Naruto showed up at the normal meeting place and sat underneath a tree and began to meditate. He was working on a way to use Kurama's chakra without any negative effects. When he first asked Kurama whether he could use his chakra, he was told that he could only use a little, enough that it would change his physical features a bit and would increase his speed, strength, and healing factor. Anything more than that and it would start to burn his body from the corrosive nature of his chakra. Also, if he used too much of it, he would lose himself to his primal instincts and turn into a killing machine without a care for friend or foe. At the moment he could probably handle up to 2 tails before that happened, but he wasn't going to take any chances. After a few minutes, Kurenai arrived at the training ground and saw her student sitting under a tree seemingly meditating. She frowned in thought as she tried to figure out her student. He was incredibly secretive about his past, and his life outside of his ninja duties in general, only being vague or completely refusing to answer any questions that are asked of him. She really wanted her student to trust her, but she also wanted to give him his personal space and not seem like she was overbearing. While Kurenai was thinking about her student, said blonde got up from his position under the tree and made his way over to his sensei. It was time to get some more missions, and maybe this time he would stay around for training with his sensei. Yesterday he just took off, leaving her alone. Hello sensei, are we going to get missions first and then proceed to training afterwards? Naruto inquired when he was within earshot. Kurenai shook herself from her thoughts and looked over towards her pupil. Yes, that will be our usual arrangement. Kurenai answered. Alright then, let's go get some missions. Naruto said as he started to walk towards the Hokage tower. When did he become the leader? Kurenai thought as she followed him. -5 hours later, Kurenai and Naruto were standing in training ground 13 getting ready to start their training. Naruto had completed 4 missions today. He picked walking the Inuzuka dogs again and cleaning out the rest of the kennels, since Team 10 didn't finish yesterday. He also picked grocery shopping for a citizen in the red light district and trash pickup in the southeast park. It also seemed that since he completely rid everyone of the dreaded Tora mission, that he will get a daily D-rank pay for the rest of his life. Okay Naruto, since it seems that you are quite adept at genjutsu, I having a feeling that this apprenticeship will be very fruitful for you. Kurenai stated, starting to like being Naruto's sensei more and more, especially after she found out that he was a natural at genjutsu. Now, since you already know how to detect genjutsus used on you and dispel them, I am going to teach you how to detect area of effect genjutsu. Kurama, do area of effect genjutsus affect me? Naruto asked his partner. Yes they do Kit. You should pay attention to what your sensei is about to teach you, it will most likely come in handy in the future. Kurama replied. Now there are multiple ways to detect area of effect genjutsus. If you are a natural sensor, that is the easiest way, but we are just going to assume that you aren't, since I haven't seen you show any real prowess in chakra sensing. Kurenai stated rather bluntly. Kid, you just got told by you sensei. Kurama laughed. Naruto developed a small eye twitch listening Kurama laughing it up. Well, she is correct in saying that I am not a natural sensor. Though she could have been less blunt about it. Naruto thought back, guess she wanted a sensor team and just got stuck with me. So you will have to work harder when detecting area of effect genjutsu. Now the first step is to reach out with your chakra to feel any foreign chakra in the air around you. To do this you make a shell out of your chakras surrounding you. Usually this shell should have about a 20 to 30 foot radius. That way you can detect a hostile genjutsu well before you run into it. Kurenai lectured. Now I want you to try and create this chakra shell. Just expel your chakra and hold it at a set distance from your body. Don't be disappointed if you do. Kurenai looked at Naruto and saw a large blue semi-transparent sphere surrounding him. Dear Kami, how much chakra does this kid have? He is expelling enough to make it visible and doesn't look like he is even trying. Kurenai thought, looking at her pupil with wide eyes. It seemed that he never ceases to amaze her. Kid, you are using enough chakra to cover over 300 feet with the chakra shell technique she described to you. Tone down the chakra usage and let the chakra spread. You are keeping it within 30 feet of you. Right now you just look like a person inside of a bluish sphere. Kurama sighed. It's not easy to use what others would call a small amount of chakra. This is small to me. It's not my fault, I have incredibly large reserves and have you sealed inside of me. I actually have to concentrate relatively hard to even keep my chakra usage this low. Naruto thought back in annoyance, scrunching his brow in concentration, trying to lower his chakra output even more. Making a sphere of chakra around his body was easy, but controlling the output from every tenketsu point on the body was extremely difficult. Though he guessed this could also be a good way to train his body in chakra control when releasing chakra from a large amount of tenketsu points. Usually he just uses the ones in his hands or feet. After a few minutes Naruto was able to lessen the amount of chakra he was using to maintain the chakra shell. Now he was only using enough to cover 100 feet, much more than the average ninja, but he figured that he would just be able to sense area of effect genjutsus from much longer ranges than normal shinobi. Well, I guess I should have known that would happen. You do have more chakra than anyone in the village, so it is a reasonable outcome for you to be able to produce such a large chakra shell. But that isn't a bad thing. You can sense much farther than the average shinobi with this technique. Kurenai explained. I guess. But how do I dismantle an area of effect genjutsu after I have detected it? Naruto asked. Once you detect an area of effect genjutsu, you will have to send a tendril of chakra into the foreign chakra and break it apart. Similar to how you perform genjutsu, send the tendril into the chakra and break the flow of chakra on the area. Depending on how large the area is, it may take no time at all or a few seconds. Kurenai lectured. Now I have already set up an area of effect genjutsu. I want you to find it, though you probably already did earlier with your chakra shell, and then dismantle it. Naruto did in fact feel a foreign chakra signature in the air about 50 feet behind him earlier, so with that knowledge he reached out with a tendril of chakra and started to try and disturb the flow of chakra in the area. It was much harder than he anticipated it to be. The way his sensei explained it made it seem simple, but when you were actually trying to disrupt the flow of chakra in an area where there is no set way for the chakra to flow, it's very difficult. You have to find the flow of chakra and the boundaries that have been set up by the caster and then change the flow. When you change the flow in a shinobi, you are just forcing their chakra to flow a different way in their chakra pathways, but there are no set pathways in an open space. You have to find them and then redirect the chakra in the opposite way that the chakra is flowing, whether that be a spiral, box, or some random shape. It took Naruto a good 20 seconds before he was able to dispel the genjutsu. He would have to work on those later so that he could cut down the time that it takes to dispel those. That's good for a first try, but we will have to work on that so that you can dispel those in a matter of seconds. Can't have you sitting there for 20 seconds trying to dispel a genjutsu, would leave you open for attacks. Kurenai warned. Hi sensei, I'll have it down to a few seconds by the end of the week. Naruto declared, knowing he would get much more than that done in said time frame. He was planning on going and finding Guy and Lee to train with after his training session with Kurenai. Is there anything else you will be teaching me, sensei? Kurenai looked away from the blonde with a light blush on her cheeks forming from embarrassment. Well, the truth is I can't really teach you anything besides genjutsu, and you catch on to that so fast that I would hardly have to teach you that. You are already around Chunin level in taijutsu, which is where I am at, and you surpass me in ninjutsu, and from what I have seen you are adept in fuinjutsu as well. In my opinion you are already Chunin material, maybe even Tokubetsu Junin with a specialization in fuinjutsu. Kurenai answered, hanging her head knowing that she couldn't really teach her student all that much seeing as he was actually better than her in some, no, most areas. Had she really been neglecting her training so much that she is being surpassed by her apprentice of not even a week? Don't worry about it, sensei. I guess that just means that I get to be the sensei sometimes. Naruto answered, slightly teasing. Why am I opening up so easily to her? Naruto thought in frustration when he realized what he was doing. Probably because you feel like you can trust her. She is the first person that has been nice to you and does not have any ulterior motive to gaining your trust besides being your sensei. Kurama replied, but there's a reason I cut myself off from trusting people. It always came back to bite me in the ass in the end. Naruto thought back. Not everyone is like that kid. There are some good people in this world that are willing to help you. Maybe, I'll think more on it later. While Naruto was having his inner conversation, Kurenai was seriously contemplating whether or not to take him up on that offer. She knew that if she wanted to get stronger as a kunoichi she would have to go through a lot more training, and here is someone who, though younger, was better than her in some forms of the ninja arts. She would need to swallow her pride to be able to ask that of her student though. Would you? The question was so quiet that Naruto almost didn't hear it. What? Naruto questioned, not understanding the reason behind the question. Would you be willing to teach me? Kurenai asked as she swallowed her pride and looked Naruto straight in the eyes. Naruto was dumbfounded. He didn't actually expect Kurenai to ask for him to teach her, but if she wanted it, who was he to deny her? Of course. I mean, you're teaching me, it's only fair that I return the favor. Naruto reasoned. I'm supposed to teach you, Naruto. You don't have to teach me just because you feel obligated to, since I am teaching you, it's my job. Kurenai responded. Yay, but you actually take time to teach me. No one else cares. Naruto said, looking down at the ground. But even if you weren't teaching me I would still teach you if you asked. You're different. I'm different? How am I different? Kurenai asked with a raised eyebrow. You'll see, Naruto replied vaguely, making Kurenai scowl. Anyway, what did you want to learn? Oh, well, we seem to be at about the same level in taijutsu. I know you are better than me at fuinjutsu, so I would like to learn that, and I believe you are better than me at ninjutsu, so if you could help me with those I would appreciate it. Kurenai listed off, still somewhat ashamed that she was learning from her student. And if you could help me with stealth training I would be grateful for that as well. Kurenai added, seeing as if she was going to ask for help, she might as well get the most out of it. Yay, I can help you with all that, no problem. Though, I do need to get going. I have to be at Training Ground 9 in about 5 minutes to start training with Guy and Lee. Naruto recounted as he turned to leave and head off towards Training Ground 9. Wait, you train with Guy and Lee? Their training is ridiculous, Kurenai exclaimed, having seen their training methods before and they were insane. Yay, but there is no better training when it comes to taijutsu, speed, and strength training than with them. The insane workouts are always the most rewarding, Naruto replied as he kept walking towards Training Ground 9. Kurenai, having nothing better to do, decided to follow him and see if this training was really as good as he said it is. To her it looked more like punishment than training. Training Ground 9. Naruto walked into the clearing of Training Ground 9 ready for the training that he was going to endure. He knew the Kurenai was following him and figured she just wanted to see if the training was really a good idea. It didn't really matter to him. Hello sensei, what do you have planned for today? Naruto asked as he walked up to Guy. Team 9 turned around to see the black-clad blonde walking towards them. Tenten and Neji were a little shocked to see the blonde back. They thought that after the last training session that he would avoid their team as much as possible, and yet here he is coming back for more. Guy and Lee were ecstatic that their training partner had returned and was ready for more. Yash, Naruto-kun, your youthfulness knows no bounds, Lee exclaimed as he ran up to the blonde. Yash, Naruto-san, you have made it for yet another one of our youthful training sessions, Guy yelled as he walked up to the blonde. Yay, I have. So what was the plan for today? Naruto asked, still trying to get used to the green duo's odd quirks and obsession with youth. Well, since you never got the chance, I think it would be a great idea to have a spar with young Lee-kun here, Guy explained as he stopped next to his student. A taijutsu-only spar should work well. Yash, Naruto-kun, let's let our youth explode, Lee exclaimed. Wait a second. If I were to spar Lee with only taijutsu I would get my ass handed to me. It hurt Naruto's pride to admit that he was weaker than someone, but he wasn't stupid enough to even attempt to take on Lee in taijutsu. The kid was a monster at hand-to-hand combat. You are quite right, Naruto-san. Very smart of you to not enter a losing battle. That is a very good quality of a leader, Guy praised. Very well, you may use both taijutsu and ninjutsu. Better than just taijutsu, I guess, Naruto thought. At least now you won't get your ass handed to you as bad and I won't have to heal you as much. Kurama replied. Thanks for the support. Alright my pupils, release your resistance seals and let's see how much more youthful you have gotten in the last 2 days, Guy exclaimed, clenching his fist and had a fire raging in his eyes. He has a resistance seal on? Kurenai thought from her spot in the trees surrounding the training ground. Both genin released their resistance seals and immediately felt the relief of their muscles no longer having to work as hard. Then they both got in their ready stances and waited for the signal to start. Team 9 backed up to the edge of the clearing and waited for Guy to give the signal. Alright, are the fighters ready? Guy yelled. Both combatants nodded their heads, keeping their eyes on their opponent. Then, let your youth explode, Guy exclaimed. Yash, Lee yelled and disappeared in a blur of green. Shit, he's fast, and he still has those damn leg weights on, Naruto thought as he leaned back and dodged a roundhouse kick aimed for his face. Naruto immediately went into a back handspring and attempted to kick Lee with a bicycle kick, only for him to disappear in another green blur. Naruto quickly channeled chakra into his arms and threw himself into the air and righted himself and blocked a punch from the green-clad genin. You are very good, Naruto-kun, Lee complimented before he attempted a straight kick to Naruto's abdomen. Naruto raised his leg to stop the kick with his knee and channeled chakra to his other leg and prepared to give a devastating kick to Lee. However, as he spun his leg to hit Lee in the side, the green-clad genin once again disappeared. How the hell do I combat his speed? I can't hit something I can't see. Oh wait, yes I can. Naruto thought before he mentally slapped himself and started a chain of hand seals. Fuuten. Kamikaze. 4 small tornadoes were suddenly created and surrounded Naruto. Just as he finished calling out the jutsu, Lee made another move to kick his blonde sparring partner. However, before he could make contact, the wind from the tornado sucked him up and started to spin him around. Naruto cancelled the jutsu when he landed on the ground and watched Lee fly across the clearing. That worked better than expected, Naruto thought to himself. Naruto quickly took off towards Lee, not wasting the opportunity given to him. When he was right above Lee, about to deliver an axe kick to his stomach, Lee swept Naruto's feet from under him and pushed himself into a handstand before he launched himself into the center of the clearing. Naruto quickly got up off the ground and got into his stance while looking at his foe. The two combatants just stayed there for a while before they both took off towards each other. Lee attempted a punch to Naruto's gut, but was blocked by Naruto's hand. Naruto attempted to use Lee's arm as leverage as he lifted himself off the ground and attempted to kick the side of Lee's head. Lee ducked under the blow and placed his hands on the ground before kicking both his feet upwards. Naruto, unable to dodge, just braced himself for the blow and was sent flying into the air. At the peak of his flight, Lee appeared above him, already in the motion for a powerful axe kick. When Lee's kick connected with Naruto's back, he was sent plummeting down to the ground. When he connected with the ground, a large dust cloud was kicked up. When the cloud dissipated, the audience was able to see a beaten blonde in a sizable crater with Lee standing a few feet away. He was fated to lose from the start. Once a loser, always a loser. Neji stated as he looked upon the scene. He really shouldn't have gone along with the challenge. Lee is way above his league. Tenten agreed. Before any more comments could be made, the Naruto that was in the ground disappeared in a puff of smoke. Before Lee could react, he felt a chop to the back of his neck and he fell to the ground, temporarily paralyzed. Naruto stood behind Lee with his hand still outstretched from where he hit Lee. "Fuck, my back hurts. Anyone else and they would be in the hospital right now," Naruto complained, though his back felt like there was a fire going up it. "You're good, Lee, very good. But you fight too straightforward. You also should have checked my body while the dust was dispersing," Naruto criticized. "But your taijutsu is amazing. If I were to only use taijutsu against you, I would have lost when you forced me into the air." "Thank you for your praise, Naruto-kun," Lee said from his position on the ground. "I just have to work harder to be able to beat you. You would have beaten me if you lost those leg weights. You were already ridiculously fast with them on. Drop them and I wouldn't have been able to counter anything." "Yosh, what a good spar to get the blood running. Now let's get into our training. Activate your resistance seals again, then go grab a boulder and begin handstand push-ups while balancing the boulder on your feet. After that we shall run around Konoha 50 times backwards while dragging one of these trees. Then we shall do 300 sit-ups while hanging upside down with a boulder tied around our hands. Then after that my team must take a mission," Guy exclaimed enthusiastically. "Well then, let's get going," Naruto announced as Lee got over his temporary paralysis. "My back is going to be dead by the end of this. I'll try and fix it as fast as I can," Kurama told Naruto. "Naruto-kun, here is your boulder." Naruto heard a shout and turned around to see a boulder about his size hurtling towards him. "Fuck," Naruto mumbled before he caught the boulder, bending back slightly from the momentum of the giant rock. "My fucking back, you sound like an old man," Kurama deadpanned. "Fuck off." -5 hours later. After Guy, Lee, and Naruto finished their training session, Team 9 left to go get themselves a mission. Guy told Naruto that they would be taking a C-rank mission, so they would most likely be gone for a few weeks. "Sensei," Naruto called out and waited for Kurenai to make her presence known. Kurenai walked out of the forest surrounding the training ground and walked over towards her apprentice. She was a little startled when he called her out. She thought she was doing a good job at hiding herself. "When do you think we will be able to take C-rank mission, Sensei?" Naruto asked. Kurenai blinked before contemplating how to answer the question. "Well, we will most likely be used as backup for other teams that are going on C-rank missions that Hokage-sama believes will need a little more help. We will probably go with all the rookies on their first C-rank. Though since you are outstanding for a green genin, we could probably do one soon with just the two of us," Kurenai replied. She knew that Naruto was much better than any of the genin in his year, and even better than the genin ahead of him. He could probably handle a C rank right now. Okay, well I guess, since Team 9 is on a mission for the next few days, our training begins tomorrow. I'll see you then, sensei. Naruto stated as he disappeared in a swirl of black sakura petals. Kurenai just sighed before she took her leave as well. She had a date to get ready for and she was going to make sure that it would be perfect.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.